Well, I was just gonna tell you, I was just gonna tell you, I was just talking to Tasha about how we want to pivot on this, so. We'll run the special meeting at the planning commission and follow that agenda.
We do,
Okay.
actually, Leslie.
So you'll have to,
Okay,
So,
well, I'll tell him to go to whatever it is.
Do I
call the meeting to order,
Okay, yeah.
And then do roll call and then add in approval of the agenda, because
Okay.
it's not on there.
After roll call, right?
We might want to run this by Catherine for protocol, but then because the ZBA
Uh-huh.
is coming to the regular planning commission meeting, we should try to adjourn this meeting no later than 7:30 or when they arrive, so they don't have to wait.
Okay,
So then we'll adjourn this meeting, start the planning commission.
okay. All right, shall we get started? Is it 5
Meetings back to back?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, tonight's our regular planning commission.
Okay. Okay, all
I
right,
think the idea was, since most everybody was here, that.
okay, yeah, so, okay, great.
All right, I'm gonna call the meeting to order at 5:31. And, so the board, I don't need to roll call. For with.
Maybe for the other people present, we should explain what is happening.
Okay, so, yeah, there was the meeting tonight was going to be with the board and the planning commission to, go over and hear from our attorneys on the battery storage, some text amendments, procedures. However, the board portion of the meeting was not posted out there or posted at all.
It was online.
It was online, but not at the township, so the board cannot have a quorum here tonight, so the planning commission is just gonna walk through this agenda. And then go into our regular planning commission meeting.
Do we have an agenda?
Tasha, did you make copies?
I brought some copies, Anita. Dave, do you have one?
No.
Trevor, I think I might have one.
Thank you.
Thank you, yeah, that was a lot of pages.
Packet.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Um,
Trevor and I can share.
No, I have one.
Okay, that one, okay.
so Anita, do you
So-
want to take the minute? Yes?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
Well, there's so many pieces and parts that I don't know where one starts and
Okay.
one ends, so it's
So
fine.
I will do a roll call for the planning commission. Anita Manley,
Here,
Dave Marcelletti.
Here.
Cheryl Bull is here, Trevor Phillips.
Here.
Jason Bolt.
Here.
Okay, so then, we probably need to approve the agenda next.
Yeah, that was missing on the agenda sent out by Ken, so if you guys want to take a minute to look at that.
Tasha made copies of that other stuff.
Yeah, but what I passed down to those guys, I wonder if it's got, mine has 2 pages. Oh, no, that's good. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
You're good.
Is 21 pages correct for your current packet?
I had like
So
19.
My packet, yes,
It was like.
but Ken's packet was like 68 pages or something
Oh,
like that.
Are there any changes to the,
No, I make a motion to
Revisions?
approve the agenda for the special meeting now being held by the planning commission.
okay, seconded by Trevor, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. All right. So then we'll have public comment. We have any public comment? They would receive any communications at all since our last meeting or about this or?
Yeah, just about this, yeah. I got emails saying that the meeting was at 5:30 tonight.
But no public, not from the
No.
public.
Oh, to
Okay.
you. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Any? No? Okay. All right. So first we want to talk about the battery storage, battery storage system text amendment. Jason, I'm gonna ask you to, since you're on the board, and can kind of maybe,
Yeah, I can tee
this
this up.
outline doesn't give me much.
Yeah,
what I was
so,
thinking.
just for the benefit of those in the audience as well, we had asked our attorneys to join this meeting because it was, again, designed to be a joint session between the board and the planning commission. Because there's lots of issues, that we wanted to make sure we had, good, clear legal counsel on. Which is why we're gonna move forward with this, but I will say that we are operating off of an agenda that our supervisor produced, so I'm gonna try to kind of read between the lines about what these items mean. I think with the amount of time we've spent in discussion on them, both as a planning commission and the board, it's probably fairly obvious, but I think what's gonna happen is there'll probably just be a lot of questions that we need to ask of our attorneys for some direction on. So the first one being the battery energy storage system text amendment. Michael and Catherine, would it be beneficial just to kind of summarize where we're at on that whole issue and kind of where we've come? Do you guys feel like you're up to speed on that, or?
I can talk about what the planning commission did.
Okay,
My firm is the planning commission attorney, and Mr. Homier's firm is general counsel for the township. I worked with Tasha to help draft what's considered, what our firm considers a workable ordinance, which is not a strict compatible renewable energy ordinance, but is more restrictive and has more differences, setbacks or whatever it is. And so we did that such that if in fact any type of, and it was battery energy is what we did, right? We haven't done solar or anything like that yet.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so
Just.
if in fact a developer came that wanted to do a battery energy storage project, they would, after November 29th, which he will discuss about his litigation, November 29th, they would have the option of coming here, asking your township, do you have a compatible renewable energy ordinance? At which time, if you had adopted the workable ordinance, you would say no, but we have this workable ordinance and you're free to go through our township if you want to. Or you can go to the MPSC. So that is the approach a lot of townships have taken is, if you want to come through us, we're going to be something a little bit more restrictive than what the state specifically allows. Because the state specific standards in the statute, which is subsection 226 sub 8, is not very, it has setbacks, it has heights, it has lighting. It doesn't have a lot of other provisions. So that's what we worked with the planning commission on. I think the planning commission worked with Tasha and ultimately held a public hearing and recommended approval. And then after that, I'm not sure how far it got. If it got to the county planning commission, if it came back from there, I'm not sure what happened after that.
yeah, I could probably take it from there, Catherine. So,
Left out of their minutes.
Sure, I might have it in this
Yep.
whole
Okay.
package. but
Oh, it
okay.
is, isn't it?
Okay.
and just to add a little small piece of backstory as well. We had embarked on that course of action based on our understanding of the impact of PA 233 that was passed by the Michigan legislature. And that as of the end of November, the state could come in and basically supersede any ordinance that we had or didn't have, and these renewable energy projects could go wherever. And so it was recommended us at the time that it would be better to try to adopt our own workable ordinance that would be more restrictive than the state's. So that at least if a project came in and was willing to work with us, they would be agreeing to follow ordinances that were more strict than what the state was requiring. So we set up a timeline in order to do that in a very quick fashion because we had to do public notices, we had to hold public hearings, we had to draft the ordinance, we had to send it to the county for review, which takes 30 days, wait for the county's determination to come back, and then it would go to the board to adopt or not. And the board agreed with that course of action at the time. So that's the way we proceeded. It did go to the county reviewed it, they concurred with the ordinance. and sent it back to us. And then at our last board meeting, the board voted to postpone the vote on whether to adopt that ordinance. I think, Karen, you can correct me if I'm wrong on the timeline. Subsequent to that was when we received the letter from Foster Swift regarding some pending litigation that we had the option to join. And maybe it would be best to let you, Michael, talk about that, but the board did decide to join other townships in Michigan in this lawsuit. And as it was explained to me by Michael when I contacted his office, if that lawsuit was won, that it would definitely be favorable for our township being able to have more control over where these projects land. But it was through the CREO version of the ordinance, correct?
Correct.
Which we were not chasing at that point. We were chasing a workable ordinance, because the CREO has a lot more strict guidelines and timelines and things like that. So, and I think that's when we were working with Catherine, and she was saying that that is probably generally not the best course of action. So now all that seems like it might be a little bit up in the air. So currently that ordinance has been drafted. It has been paused by the board, and we joined the suit that Foster Swift is heading up. And now I think where we're at is we definitely need some direction on how to proceed from here. Do we pivot and go the route of doing a CREO? Do we continue to work on our workable ordinance? Do we do nothing? And that's why you guys were invited tonight. So do you want to jump in at this point, Michael? Does it make sense about the lawsuit or?
Sure. So let me start by telling you what I tell all of our clients, which is PA 233 doesn't require you to do a single thing. You could ignore it if you wanted to, right? There's a risk in that. And the risk is you cede jurisdiction to the MPSC. So, some of our clients have adopted what they believe to be workable ordinances. At the end of the day, they're incompatible. And so that risk is that somebody says, well, that's not workable for us, and we're going to go to the MPSC. And then, you would get into a contested case hearing, and you might get an intervener fund in order to fight that there. But at the end of the day, if they meet the requirements of PA 233 and the MPSC issues a site certificate, then your local ordinances are preempted. And a lot of our clients didn't like that. They don't like it. But PA 233 is what it is. Adopted by the legislature. There was an effort to put it on the ballot that didn't gain enough signatures, and it will take effect on November the 29th. Our appeal is not of PA 233. It is an appeal of the October 10, 2024 order issued by the MPSC. That order has to do with the implementation of PA 233, and at least we believe goes beyond the authority the MPSC has for several different reasons. One of which is it wasn't a rule promulgated under the Administrative Procedures Act. It's an order in a case, and it's not a contested case. It was a case opened by the MPSC. But in that 168 pages, the MPSC goes on to redefine terms, invent new terms like hybrid facilities. It doesn't exist anywhere in PA 233. More importantly, for many of our clients, they said we took a long look at PA 233 during the past year since it was adopted, and believe that those provisions under section 226 subparagraph 8 have to do with lighting and fencing and setbacks and noise and height of panels, those type of dimensional and other bulk requirements that you would see. And PA 233 defines a compatible renewable energy ordinance as one that doesn't have any provisions that are more strict than those provisions specifically named in that section. Well, determining where in your township those uses are permitted in our opinion, is not more restrictive than that. The MPSC thinks otherwise. They believe that anything other than those provisions are more restrictive. Well, if that's the case, then why would you ever adopt a renewable energy ordinance? Ever? It would make no sense to do it. The state's gonna apply the same setbacks and noise and lighting and fencing requirements. It just doesn't make much practical sense. So, after they issued their order, we talked to several of our clients who were dead set against, you know, what we believe is sort of using the utilization of the MPSC to gut the local municipality's authority to regulate the where and how much. And so they decided that they were gonna appeal, and from there it took off. And so we ended up with 79 municipalities, 5 counties, the rest townships, that want to appeal that order because I think the MPSC stepped beyond its authority. And what that means then is that we're gonna challenge the authority of the MPSC to circumvent or preempt our zoning authority, one that you generally have, where you segregate land uses into those 4 main categories: agricultural, commercial, residential, industrial. And so local municipalities have the ability, absent a total prohibition, to say, yes, we'll allow that land use. This is where it's going to be. We'll apply the state mandated setbacks and noise requirements, so it is compatible, but it's limited to this area. And, you know, then you have to worry about an exclusionary zoning claim. So you want to set aside enough property or enough area in which that could be utilized. And so I think most of our clients have done that over the past year. And then you get the MPSC in October then issuing this order, which upsets all of the work that they had done on that issue. And so they weren't very happy about having to do compatible ordinances in the first place. But they were willing to do that if they could then decide for their own communities where those land uses should be utilized, like every other land use. And what they looked at in citing those land uses were proximity to transmission lines, density, existing substations. Those are all important factors when you're citing those facilities. So there is a rational basis behind where they located them. And so, you know, our clients decided to pick a fight. And so we're gonna have that fight. And we filed the appeal on Friday. We filed an amended appeal yesterday because we had some late stragglers who wanted to join. And because of the holidays, and the actual appeal was due on a Saturday, which pushes it over to Monday. Monday's a holiday, pushes it over to Tuesday. So we were able to get a few stragglers in at the last minute. I still have people calling me today asking to join. But it's a statutory, it's a statute of limitations problem on the appeal, so we're kind of cut off from there. That doesn't mean there aren't other entities that may have an interest and will likely or may get involved, like the MTA, Michigan Association of Counties. Not sure about the MML because it affects cities much less. I mean, they still might have an interest in the battery storage issue because generally you would want to locate those in industrial areas, right, in those municipalities. And based upon, you know, the MPSC's approach to it is these are permitted uses everywhere and anywhere. And I just did disagree with that. And so, you know, we'll eventually get an answer from the Court of Appeals and go from there. As for your community, as I tell each of our clients, you have to decide for yourselves, you know, what your policy will be on these land uses. Like every other land use, where do you think it's appropriately located and what's right for your community? I am repeatedly telling clients that I'm not elected to anything. You folks are either elected or appointed officials, and this is your job, this is your community, and there's not a one-size-fits-all approach. I have clients who have approved projects that they wanted, and they located them in areas that were not going to be or not have adverse impacts on adjacent land uses where it made sense to them. That's fine. And every community's got to make those decisions. We are more focused on what we believe is the constant erosion of local control and maintaining that. Now, from a 3-member bureaucratic agency that's accountable to nobody. And it's important for our clients. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Okay.
So I have a question. If we were gonna have like an industrial area for this stuff, it has to go through all the normal procedures, right? Like the public notice and.
Yeah, to the extent,
public hearing.
to the extent you don't have one now, right, you would have to probably amend your master plan, your future land use map, and then your zoning ordinance to implement that as well, if you were gonna locate it in industrial. A lot of our clients are more rural and they don't have industrial, which is why they set up these overlay districts for these particular uses, which would have included both, would have included solar, battery storage, and wind, all in the same district.
So I'm envisioning probably what's in your head is a big strip of industrial along our southern border.
Or an overlay.
But you don't have to make it industrial.
It could just be an overlay.
Overlay be,
It would be an industrial overlay.
No,
Well, it could be.
it would be like a renewable.
A renewable.
Energy overlay. of
Right.
solar.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, one of my clients called it research and development district, where they put all of kind of those types of land uses in that district. Most of them called it a renewable energy overlay district, right? Which included then, all of those facilities. And I'm not quite sure, and this gets to a broader policy issue, you know, what prevents you from, favoring one of those over others? Take, for instance, wind, because wind is particularly difficult to regulate because it's so spread out, right? Over multiple townships. And so it's very hard to regulate because of all of the issues with it, including noise and shadow flicker and all of the things that go with it. Whereas solar may occupy more land, but it's easier to regulate because it's got no moving parts generally, except for tilting of panels and inverters that may cause noise and things like that. But if you locate them, if you allowed those all in one district, I'm not sure there is a prohibition for you in terms of, say, meeting a demonstrated need for energy demand of you preferring one of those uses over others. Like, say, you know, well, we prefer that you, if we're gonna have this bucket of renewable energy, which includes a lot of different things like geothermal, nuclear, wind, solar, battery storage, why can't you express a preference then for, say, solar energy, right, in this district? And we're gonna use that to meet our demonstrated need, and when the next project comes along, wind or otherwise, be able to say, we have enough. And so those are all policy issues that, or legal issues too, that will have to be worked out. But
Can we say we have enough?
yeah, I think at some point,
But if we have an ordinance and we have a provision for special use permit, can you say, no, we're not, we've already got one, we don't want another?
yeah, I think you could at some point. Where that threshold is then a risk assessment, right? So I'll give you the analogy that I give to clients. Over here on the right is total prohibition, right? Very risky. Over here is allow it everywhere, no risk. Right? It's somewhere in this middle portion where you're going to end up by saying, okay, we'll allow it in sufficient quantity so that if there's a demonstrated need, whatever that demonstrated need is in your community and surrounding communities, now we're talking about energy demand. Can you meet that by allowing this land use to be located here? It's like saying, you know, and I don't think this, my belief is that this land use doesn't have any special status other than the fact that we've got PA 233, where you have to have this throughout your township. Perfect example, I have a client down in Lenawee County right now. There are multiple developers who have proposed 6,000 acres of solar panels in one township. That's a huge amount of land devoted to that land use. And we know, of course, right, that that's not going to, that far exceeds their demand. They're a rural community. They will never use that. So now, you know, they're being used to produce that energy for somewhere else. And so, I was at a meeting, another client in Sanilac County, which is in the Thumb area, and the Samsung project there, and the Samsung people, they come over from South Korea, and they're gonna give their presentation, and they say, okay, you know, this is 548 acres, 182 megawatt nameplate capacity project. And it's enough to power 20,000 homes. And the chair of the planning commission says, "But we only have 600 people." And therein lies the issue, right? So if you were planning for a land use, and exclusionary zoning requires two elements generally, right? Three, lawful, right? And then, demonstrated need, right? So if you have a land use and you're not gonna prohibit it, because that's ultra risky, then what is your demonstrated need? And you can go through some calculations, it's not a scientific measurement, but it's a rough calculation of what you would need to meet that demonstrated need, say, on a solar project. And like I said, 182 megawatts producing, enough energy demand for 20,000 homes, they will never get to their demonstrated need. So that client now is having a public hearing actually tonight to adopt a CREO, create an overlay, and guess where the overlay is gonna go? On the project they just approved, because they'll never need another one. Not to fulfill their demonstrated need. And so, you know, at least in my view, these are important principles for local control. How much should Columbia have to bear? How much should Watertown Township in Sanilac County have to bear?
So right now, Vesper told us they want one 200 megawatt battery storage facility. So if we mark out 5-10 acres for that battery storage facility, are they gonna say, oh, by the way, we have the solar thing going on down the street?
Yeah,
Which they didn't bother to tell us.
yeah, battery storage is an interesting issue, right? Because even though you might think of it as being tied to another project, oftentimes they're not, and it's like arbitrage, right? You draw from the grid when power cost is low, store it and sell it back when it's higher, right? And that's done on a daily basis. And so, but they also occupy a smaller footprint, obviously. Anywhere between 5 and 15 acres, depending on the size. And, you know, they produce some noise, but generally easier to regulate. Again, no moving parts. Then you have to be concerned about, these are my favorite, when people start changing terms, right? So they call them an uncontrollable thermal event, you know, a fire. Yeah, right? I don't know why they think people don't understand what that means, right? Just call it a fire. And that is problematic, right? Because most fire departments are not equipped to fight those fires and just let them burn. And then you got contamination issues and everything that goes with that. So, you know, again, each community's got to decide for themselves. I am not necessarily in favor of a complete prohibition because you're just buying yourself an exclusionary zoning plan where I think somebody could argue there is a demonstrated need in your community for energy demand. So instead of doing that, provide for that rough calculation on energy demand plus some allowable percentage of growth over time, and then allocate that overlay district, if you choose to do one, on that basis. And I'll bet you will find, as most of our clients do, you're right, somewhere between 300 and 500 acres if you were gonna create an overlay district to meet that demand. Somewhere in that neighborhood.
Say that again, 300 to 500 acres?
So apparently there's a bunch of solars going in Arlington, just the other side of our border. Right close to the battery storage facility.
So back to the prohibition, so no matter what, your ordinance still has to have a CREO for the most, so no matter what, you can't just say, we don't wanna regulate it all, go to the state.
You can.
Oh, you can. Yeah, what
Okay, so
what I'm-
that's not a total prohibition, you're just letting the state have the control. But that does need to be in your ordinance, doesn't just say go use the state or.
Well, that's what functionally would occur, right?
Okay, so you
So-
still have something in your ordinance that says You have to go to the state. first.
Yeah, so for instance, right, you could adopt a zoning amendment that says, Columbia Township prohibits solar, wind, and battery storage completely. It's not permitted anywhere in the township. What would happen is, they'll say you're incompatible, go to the state issues a citing certificate, your ordinance is preempted. That's what the net effect
Oh,
would be.
okay.
And if they, you know, you gotta know if you have a Creo or not, because when they come to you, they're gonna say, do you have a Creo?
Right.
And that's gonna start your whole
Yeah.
process, through the MPSC, so. And then your question is what I have a Creo, you know, and the guidelines are more restrictive, but Attorney Homier is filing the litigation to challenge the guidelines.
Right.
So, you know, when we talk about a workable, we don't believe that a Creo allows you to do an overlay district in our firm. And the guidelines that were released, as he's talking about, the order that was released by the MPSC in October said, the Creo doesn't allow you to do these things. He is challenging that order from the MPSC, and, you know, the important part is, if he is able to get injunctive relief before the 29th or close to the 29th of November, that would prohibit the MPSC from starting to process things under the guidelines they have developed and adopted. So, you know, this litigation is really important because the definition of what a Creo is, what the MPSC has defined, what they understand a Creo to be, we at least think is a little bit different from what Attorney Homier is saying, but what he is saying is, hey, they didn't do it the right way. They didn't adopt it through the professional rulemaking process. They adopted these guidelines. That is not good enough. That should not govern and restrict people from developing what they think a Creo is, because the Creo is the whole entry point for you to regulate versus the MPSC. So if in fact, you know, this litigation is really important, and I know MTA is looking at probably supporting with some type of amicus assistance. They haven't decided it yet, but they're looking at it. So I think that's really important, as whoever the policymakers here are, if you decide where you're gonna go or what you're gonna do. You know, and I have some clients that are gonna do nothing, because they've been through the wars already. They've had the recalls, they've had the zoning ordinance referendums, they've had it all. They're just gonna let it go. Cause none of them wanna put their names on any decision like that, cause they already did it once and it was bad news. Okay, so that's a possibility. And then you here can decide. And I think his litigation is gonna be very helpful in clarifying, do we have to live by these guidelines of the MPSC? Or can we do more in our Creo or compatible renewable energy ordinance like he suggests? And, you know, of course, that's a brilliant approach, which is overlay district or somehow limiting the number of acres or the percentage of acres or the so many acres in my township or this total 5% of my total acreage or whatever it is, some type of limiting within your municipality where that can go. Because otherwise, you know, it's just open. And as he says, it completely takes away your local zoning authority to locate location-wise, district-wise, where. And that's the difficulty with this statute. It preempts us locally, totally.
Well, and that was the impetus for us to take the approach we took and
Right.
move with the speed we did, because, and I don't know if this complicates our situation more, but you know, if we were talking about we were just a township in existence and nobody had approached us about any of these projects yet, we might just have said, well, we'll just wait this out and see. But we have a company who is actively engaging in the process, has purchased land, has provided at least a preliminary site plan. We know where they want to go. There's wetlands involved. I mean, there was all kinds of issues with this. So we said, oh my gosh, if we don't have any control over this, and if it's gonna be no matter what, after November 29th, we're gonna try to adopt something quickly so that at least we, you know, and candidly, Vesper seemed willing to work with us on a workable ordinance. So, but that was all under the premise of, we don't have a choice in the matter.
Right.
Now, I mean, it sounds like,
You're a plaintiff in this matter, as I
Mhm.
understand. You're signed appellant, you're signed in. So,
yes,
Mhm.
yes.
And, you know, that appeal is going to play out one way or another. What I will say is this, like to the extent that, a developer has engaged with you and given you concessions that you find acceptable, I'm not looking to upset the apple cart if you're happy with it. What I'm saying is that there may be other options, and I'm really not even worried, like, for instance, this company that is working with you, that may be great. What about the next one?
Right.
The one after that, the one after that, right? And that's where it becomes problematic, where, like, for instance, you might adopt a workable ordinance and might have a company that is working with you in good faith and you're fine with it, that's fine. I'm not looking to mix that up. What about the next one who says, no, your ordinance is not workable, I'm going to the state?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of the problem I see, you know, when you've got, like I said, I mentioned the other client of ours down in Lenawee. You know, they've got multiple developers and 6,000 acres, they're never gonna get a workable ordinance from them. I mean, multiple developers where they get concessions. I mean, 6,000 acres is just untenable for them for a multitude of different reasons. But, you know, I have others like, I represent Muskegon County. Muskegon County's got an 11,000 acre wastewater sewer plant, right? They were fine with devoting 1,900 acres of that for consumers to do a project. Nobody will ever see it. They won't even know it's there. You can't even get near it. And so that's where it makes sense. And so there are appropriate locations to site these. What I'm suggesting is that you have local authorities still to do that.
Yeah, it definitely was not the case that we were wanting to work with them. It was much more the case that we were just trying to add a little bit of sugar to the bitter pill that it appeared that we were going to be required to swallow. So, I've heard, I think both of you say in the process, they need to come to us and ask if we have a Creo. I'm just wondering, can we revert now because we embarked on this path of creating workable ordinance? Can we stop that? And does it start over? Like, when do they come and ask us for a Creo? Cause are we
Well,
past that point or?
No, after the 29th of November.
Oh, okay.
And even then, there's some time frames built into the act, right? Where they have to schedule a public meeting in the local municipality at least 60 days prior to that. They have to reach out and then discuss with the highest elected official, the supervisor, their proposed site plan. And then within 30 days of that meeting, you'd have to notify them about whether or not you have a Creo or not.
So the only thing when I advise workable is our firm has a slightly different understanding of what a Creo is. Our firm believes it's strictly 226 sub 8. Our firm's position did not allow you to develop an overlay district or do something different and call it a Creo, which is why we went
Yeah.
advise workable.
Mhm.
Now, what happened since we've all talked is the MPSC came out and issued their guidelines and that go with us. They say very stringent. Attorney Homier has said, I don't agree with you. I'm filing litigation to challenge you, the MPSC, on developing that guideline because I don't think you have the authority to do what you did. So that's kind of what's at play right now is if in fact he wins and he changes, you know, he undoes the, MPSC determination, or he successfully changes it. And honestly, we, in our firm, we think he is right on his counts in that appeal.
Yeah.
They have gone beyond what their authority says. They didn't do it through rulemaking. They created this hybrid project where you can add up the megawatts to equal the threshold megawatts. There's no, that's not in the law. So, you know, that's what's different between when I was here before.
Okay.
So that's really positive. So you need to think about, are we willing to go with what he advises we could do and still call it a Creo? Add and whatever, how you want to approach it, overlay district, total number of acres, something like that. Again, the exclusionary zoning component analysis, how much do I need to take care of my own people, my own self? A little bit more,
Yeah.
so nobody can say I'm exclusionary. Figure out where your lines are, figure out what everything is, and then, you can retool this. You would have to go through another public hearing at the planning commission. It would be redrafted. probably with his help, to come up with some type of overlay district or something.
But we're
Another
not too
public
late.
hearing. You're not too late, especially if he's able to secure some type of injunctive relief, which is court, do not allow the MPSC to start taking applications on November 29th, because I've brought litigation challenging that whole process.
Well, and we didn't adopt the ordinance, so we don't.
Right.
Right, but
Right.
they're worried about, do we have to have something in place by the 29th?
Yeah, no, even if, and let's just suppose that you wanted to adopt this as it is and revisit it later and change it, then you should do that, because you're in no worse position, right? You're incompatible now. But I mean, the only issue would be if you're that opposed to it such that somebody could locate a facility where you don't want it, where you wouldn't want it, where you can't get that concession, then I would say, well, now you need to rethink it. But if any developer is working with you and you're satisfied with the location and screening and they've given you concessions and you're satisfied with that, then you're in no worse position if you adopt this ordinance, because
Yeah.
you can always go back and amend it and change it and say, no, now we're gonna do an overlay.
Now we're doing.
Well, this is why this is so encouraging, because the location is the issue.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a public hearing, but we also had a couple open houses. We've had lots of residents come in and express concerns because the location that the project is proposed at involves a wetland. And so that's a big concern, rightly so. But again, we were sort of operating under the premise that at some point, we're not gonna have a choice where it goes anyways, so we're just gonna try to make it as best as possible on that location, but knowing that we might have the opportunity to say, fine, we're gonna move it down the power line to this location where there's no wetlands and make an overlay district, and that's where they go, that's a huge win. I mean, I would think, Dixie, you've been at all these meetings, how does that sound to you?
Well,
I mean, again, knowing that ideally probably people don't want it at all, but.
what my concern is that Columbia Township, the 6 square miles that we have 13 lakes. And what I've read about this type of battery storage is when it catches on fire, you have to clear the area like a quarter of a mile. There are dead fish 3 miles away, which is very impactful for our community if something like that were to happen. And if you go back and read things that have happened over the last 2 years, there's one facility in California that has caught on fire twice. The one in Missouri just last week caught on fire. So what did you call that? The fires, the
Yeah.
uncontrollable thermal event.
Runaway thermal event.
Right, so, and then they have PFAS, that the fire department uses to put these fires out. That is a forever chemical that you cannot get rid of.
Actually, I thought they don't put it.
They don't put them out, they let them burn.
Yeah,
The air.
Right,
Well-
so, but I mean, and we have, our lakes are very populated, our areas are very populated. Basically, our tax base is based off of our lakes.
Right.
Well, I think that would be the kind of the good thing about being able to create an overlay. We could create an overlay in an area that, that is furthest away from the lakes. As possible, that would be the benefit of,
And then kind of the one good thing about this was that property did have wetlands, but then the ones next to it were full wetlands, so there's not like dense neighborhoods in the area.
right,
I mean, not that that's good or bad, but there's
Right.
a lot of area where there isn't anything. So. I mean, it's, yeah,
I don't want you to misconstrue my comments either, right? It'd be nice if I filed the appeal and the state said, yeah, we give up.
that's not happening.
It's not gonna happen, and so a court's gonna have to decide these issues.
Right.
So I
We're
may
taking a
very
chance.
well be wrong at the end of the day. I don't think I'm wrong, but I could be. And so the court's gonna have to resolve the issues. Like I said, I don't think that PA 233 operates as a preemption on its face. It's more like conditional preemption. Conditional in as much as you don't have a CREO, but not those items that I'm suggesting that municipalities retain, that is the designation of where, are not more restrictive than those items in 226 subparagraph 8. Saying you can engage in this land use, but it's gonna be here, is not any more restrictive than those provisions. The MPSC sees it differently, and they say, if it's not in there, you can't regulate. And that flips Michigan law, in my opinion, on its head. Because Michigan law right now is, if the state hasn't completely occupied the field of regulation, you're free to regulate.
Since our township only has, let's say, 5,000 houses, do we only need to have a facility that would service 5,000 houses? Or do we have to have a facility that would service 20,000 houses?
So generally, when we're looking at demonstrated need, we do sort of a back of the napkin calculation. Each residential premise on average uses about 11,000 kilowatt hours per year. Well, you can start to then go through the math on that and figure out how many or how much your energy demand is. Now you got to figure into there some of the commercial and industrial uses as well. There's some standards for those, plus some growth factor over time, right? But you would get to that point where it's probably anywhere between 300 and 500 acres, depending on what that energy demand comes out to be. If you figure that like, and Samsung by its own admission, said, well, it's a 182 megawatt project, covers 548 acres. That's 1 megawatt for every 3 acres. I would tell you it's probably it's 1 megawatt between 3 and 5 acres, that you could get out of that just on a solar, project. So if you start working those numbers, you can get to a place where you can say, okay, here's our energy demand. Here's now what we need in terms of size of a district in order to do two things. One is get to at least a 50 megawatt nameplate capacity threshold, because then it invokes the PA 233. We're not ditching any of your other provisions that might apply, because those are still going to apply to anything less than 50 megawatts. And then, we have the whole issue with the wind project but by definition, I'm not sure you get to the demonstrated need argument on an exclusionary zoning, because by definition, you are permitting the land use in this area.
Didn't they tell us that it's not even, it's going back into the grid? It's not necessarily gonna be for.
That's what I was just gonna ask, is
Yeah.
battery storage
A different
different?
animal.
Because it's not really supplying new energy
Here,
Here.
needed. It's arbitrage, like you said,
Yeah, but none of them are. I mean, nobody's building a solar facility here to provide, well, take
Okay.
Watertown. They're not building a facility there to provide power to 600 homes. It's
Mhm.
20,000. It's not gonna be used there.
right?
Mhm.
Now, you're right, it goes back onto the grid, it gets shifted around, and what I'm saying is that if you took each of the, say townships in Michigan, and each of them provided for their own demonstrated need, the state would meet its capacity issues, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Absent, I suppose, the more urban areas like Detroit, Grand Rapids, those areas that apparently don't have to provide for their own demonstrated needs, so. But I know Catherine's just, I'm all about local control. And we're gonna fight over the erosion of this local control.
And I think his Attorney Homer's point is valid. You could go ahead and adopt what you've already developed. Work with Vesper on that, and then as his litigation plays out, you could change it. You could adopt it and it would still apply to everything under the thresholds. I mean, you need something for under the thresholds. Whether or not you'll ever get anything under the thresholds, I don't know. But it won't hurt you to have it there.
Does the ordinance have to say this is for under it, or can the ordinance just be the same and
So.
Does it have to say under
I
50
don't think it
or
has to
100
say.
megawatts or whatever?
Some townships are doing that.
Yeah, so, because so a lot of our clients already had wind, solar,
Right.
not battery storage necessarily, because there were only a couple of facilities statewide, but. But what we did was, we kept all their provisions, and we said, okay, we're just gonna add an amendment onto the end, and it basically said. On or after November 29th, and so long as PA 233 is in effect, these regulations now apply. To those projects over 50 megawatts. And to the extent that the above provisions don't conflict with these provisions, those still apply
So
to.
that's very clever, thank you for giving me that.
Yeah, so, and that provides this, sort of trigger when it goes into effect. That these setbacks now apply to those, and we copy verbatim those provisions of subparagraph 8. These provisions apply. To the extent there aren't any conflicts with these, all the rest of yours apply, like for instance, screening requirement. If you have a screening requirement, it still applies. Why? Because it's not in subparagraph 8 of section 226. And really, you know, we just kind of created that example of how we're going to, on that November 29th date, reach compatibility, and then if a developer comes knocking, yep, we're compatible. And the MPSC, funny part of that was, MPSC is taking the position that we don't have the authority to adjudicate whether it's compatible or not.
Yeah, that's the funny part. isn't it?
Seriously?
Yeah,
So there, if you tell them it's a compatible renewable energy ordinance, they're just to say, okay. And then if the company wants to challenge you or somehow, they would have to challenge you.
yeah, and they're talking about then filing an
Wow.
administrative procedure through the Michigan Hearings Office, which they don't have the authority either.
So
So-
basically, if Vesper, if we adopt the ordinance and Vesper says, yep, we'll work with you on that, no problem, we'll do what you got, whatever. Then the state and what is it? MPSC, I can never remember letter. MPSC won't even look at it. Or they'll just be like, oh, okay, it's compatible.
If, if you say I have a Creo,
Oh, a Korea, okay.
okay, they're going to not challenge you on that. The
Okay.
MPSC is not going to independently investigate whether you have a Creo.
Okay.
Developer would. The developer would.
Okay,
Okay, because he might say, hey, you've got more in there than I think you're supposed to have. I don't have to go through you. I'm going straight to MPSC. The
Okay.
Creo is the beginning door to the MPSC
Okay.
process. When we develop what we call the workable,
Mhm.
it would be, hey, we don't have a Creo, we have this, you can come to us if you want to. And because of benefits of time, money, whatever, you might be willing to do that. Now, Attorney Homer is saying, I think you can follow Creo and add, we call it Creo plus more, overlay, whatever. You know, we just didn't read the law that way, but, you know, his litigation is going to help decide whether the MPSC has the authority to say you can't determine location through an overlay or whatever else, or you can. So as he said, they totally decided it can go anywhere in your municipality.
Mhm.
And they can come to us and get approval, and he says, I don't think they can do that. That's the gist of it, essentially,
Right.
right?
Karen or Kara, do you guys have any questions?
Well, I kind of want to repeat back. Make sure. So where we are right now, we have a workable ordinance that's partially through the process.
Correct.
We paused it at the board. So if we were to proceed with that, which I don't think we're going to, Vesper would be able to apply
Through you,
through us,
or if they didn't like your workable ordinance.
I think they do like our work.
They could go to the MPSC.
Right?
Well, they don't like the setbacks, but. that's-
Okay, but I think they're in such a hurry,
Well, that's,
they would jump on it. And we would no longer have any
but you as the
way to
board,
get out of it.
You as
We
the
would be
board.
forced to accept their application if they met what we have in there. right now.
but then you would go through a special use process, right? It's a special use, right? You would go through that whole process here in the township and decide yes or no. But obviously, if they are mostly in compliance with this workable, you would probably say yes with permission.
Right. So I think you know, Catherine, I don't know if you know, Michael, that basically the feedback we've gotten from the residents is we don't want anything anywhere, right?
Which,
So given that scenario, the Creo, if it can be taught, which it is, sounds like our safest bet. There was something in here from, U of M about incompatible.
Well, that's a workable. That's a workable. It's not
So is it
compatible.
workable or?
It's incompatible. It's not a compatible renewable energy ordinance. It's something different. It's work, and we call it workable.
So that's what we did.
That's what you did.
We
Okay,
did a workable ordinance,
Right.
which is also
Which is not a Creo.
incompatible.
Right. It's not a compatible for all the reasons I just mentioned.
Yeah.
We read the strict version of the statute. We read the plain language of the statute. We understand a compatible ordinance to be 226 sub 8. The guidelines produced by the MPSC agreed with us, okay? Mr. Homier is saying, I believe, because simply it's silent on location, that I can say through a Creo, a compatible ordinance, that I could have an overlay district that is part of that, or I could have some type of analysis, some locational standards in my Creo. Our firm didn't read it that way. The MPSC came out and read it the way we did, okay? They said, no, you can't do that. He's challenging it through litigation. So to be determined, essentially, right?
so
You've got
since
two of the
we
best
really
firms in
don't
the
want-
state sitting here saying we have a little slight difference of opinion on what a Creo could be. And so he's challenging that because he feels, and we agree, the MPSC cannot, without doing formal rulemaking, determine how the statute will be applied. And they did it with guidelines. They didn't do formal rulemaking. So to be continued, correct?
I think waiting for the litigation might be.
I don't know how long.
So that's what I'm wondering,
we
when
join
Vesper,
Mhm.
when we get to November 29, and Vesper wants to turn in an application,
Mhm.
what do we do at that point? We
Well-
say we're going to do a Creo, or?
You can say that if that's what your board decides. You can say, hey, we're gonna change screen. It's not gonna be that much different, but there'll be some type of, we're doing a Creo. And it may have some locational component. It's gonna have some locational component to it. And you can wait for us to do that, or you can go to the MPSC.
So more than likely, since they've already chosen a location, that I'm guessing if we were to do an overlay district, we would not include that particular parcel in there. I guess I don't know that for sure. So that would make them want to challenge it immediately.
So that would make them go to the MPSC.
Yeah.
But I guess in a nutshell, do we get the benefit of this taking longer if we go through a Creo and maybe we're not protected any of the way?
Well, I think you have look, I don't think, I'm not sure how many developers are gonna rush down on
Yeah.
November the 29th and file applications.
I think
with
it's the day after
MPSC.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So everybody's
Yes,
be
it
watching
is.
and, I've already figured that out.
But,
What day is it?
but beyond that, I mean, we're filing a motion this week, to seek a stay, of the MPSC's order. I don't know how long, usually it will take a few weeks for the Court of Appeals to deal with that. There will be responses, obviously, to that motion, and then, doubtful they'll take oral argument on it. They'll just, issue an order about whether or not they'll stay the order. I think there are some, apart from the issue on whether or not you create an overlay district itself. I mean, the MPSC actually changed the legislation. They added things that aren't there. They revised definitions that are there. I mean, they don't have legislative authority, period. And so, and the rulemaking issue versus, formal rulemaking through the APA versus opening up their own case on their own order and then issuing an order as if it were a rule. So those are problematic things that I think, regardless of the overlay issue, that the court may say, well, wait a minute, something's not right here. So whether we get that, stay or not, we'll see. If we do, I suspect it's going to halt the MPSC from
Any
processing
applications, yeah.
anything.
I think so, yes.
So even though the law would be in effect, it would be at a standstill
Their
until
hands
the
would be
appeal,
tied.
yeah.
And you would have time to do whatever you want to do.
If you don't get the stay, then,
Then if they came knocking, right, you'd have to say, we don't have a compatible ordinance, and then they have to decide.
if they're gonna go, okay.
Yeah, regardless of whatever you have in place, whether it's workable, whether it's something else that's not compatible, you'd have to advise them, we're not compatible. And
At
that
this moment.
opens the door
To
to the
them.
MPSC.
Okay,
Unless the MPSC is enjoined,
Yeah.
stop from taking
Okay.
any applications.
okay,
So that's why it's really like a really, a moment in time right now, right?
yeah,
To try and decide what to do.
Right.
It will be difficult.
And you know, Catherine's right, I mean, there is time value of money for these companies, right? They don't want to have to go to the MPSC. I mean, the MPSC can take up to a year to approve, plus they have to pay you the intervenor fund to fight them, right? Up to $75,000, right? So you've got all these things going on. I mean, that's. In the Samsung project, I got involved in late in the process, but nevertheless, I recognized their urgency as well. They didn't want to wait. And so at the end of the day, you know, that little community of 600 people, they're gonna get paid about $1 million for that project upfront.
Mhm.
So, you know, there were some benefits. They were okay with the location. They weren't happy about it by all means.
Mhm.
Nobody is. And even if you did an overlay district here, the part that you have to be concerned with is educating your constituents. Because to some degree, your hands are tied. They will look at it as if you are permitting this, yeah,
Right.
you're, you know.
like we want it,
Correct.
and no matter how many times you say, we don't want it, this is what,
We've already
this is
experienced
it.
that.
Yeah, they're gonna be like,
And then-
oh, you want it.
And then when you select that overlay district, those people in the district will say, why are you forcing me to do this? No, we're not. We don't care whether you do. That's an issue between you and a developer.
And
Right.
if-
So they don't have to sell their property.
Well, if
Right.
they haven't sold their property and leased their property, we wouldn't be here.
Right.
Right,
So that starts the analysis.
Correct.
You know, I've got a township and I've told some of you, it's 9,000 acres. Two projects, 809 megawatt and another 100 megawatt solar. They're getting a lot of money for this. Their board kind of wanted to do this. But
Did you say
No.
809 megawatts?
809 megawatt solar project and another 100 megawatt solar project, and now we got battery storage coming.
Jeez.
So, you know, that township board is like, we are very rural. We are gonna do, a lot of people have leased out their land, sold out their land. We did a build.
Money raining from the sky over there.
Money raining from the sky, but we still can't fix their roads, but, you know, some townships, this is a policy decision of your board.
Right.
But I think Attorney Homer is 100% correct. If you say no, nothing, you're gonna get a big target on your head. Because somebody's already bought land here, or
Right.
leased land or whatever.
yeah,
I mean, it just, you have to get somewhere on that
Yeah.
spectrum, okay? That is reasonable, or at least arguably reasonable.
Well,
in
thank you
terms
for
of-
all that. It's unfortunate that the full board is not here to hear all that, because
Mhm.
really,
Yeah, that
that's
was
the
a lot.
the next thing needs to happen is at our board meeting, we need to decide what to do, because that's where it sits.
Right.
And Karen's outgoing treasurer, so she's got one more meeting. Kara's incoming clerk, so she can't vote on it unless it happens in December. So we're gonna have to
Can they-
transfer all this information to the
yeah, I
board.
mean, can the recording be made available via,
Sure.
yeah, for them to watch? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
And, you know, I think it's really, you know, I would not have advised workable if I felt that you could do a Creo otherwise. So
Right.
we, you know, we're a very conservative law firm. So we actually statutorily, the good point about this moment in time is he's brought this litigation.
Yeah.
You're one of the appellants in the litigation. You may get a stay before November 29th, and that will give everybody some time to figure out exactly how you want to proceed. If you want to go down the realm of going back and amending this slightly and doing some type of overlay district, that you could at least, you know, talk to your residents or taxpayers about, like, we have thought about this. We know we have to take some, We've thought about where it should be, we've thought about, you know, how many acres or whatever, we've done the calculations. Then you might feel better about,
Yeah.
you know, adopting something.
Yeah.
To be clear, Catherine, we don't feel like you led
Well,
us
I-
astray. Well,
Yeah,
no,
not at all.
I just wanna be sure.
this
because,
thing's been a moving target. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
we're making
two-
decisions along the
two
way as
members
best we
of the
can.
Stay here and we agree on 95% of everything. And he's gonna find out the answer on the other 5%.
Somebody might tell me I'm off my rocker, but until then, you know, I've always been a troublemaker, so. I just, well, and some of my clients are the same way. You know, I just don't believe the state went as far as the MPSC has interpreted it. And so, but look, these answers are beneficial for everybody, because right now, you know, it's like, when we had, medical marijuana that passed, we litigated those cases for
For
10
20
years.
years.
Yeah, I mean, it was just over and over.
2008,
Yeah.
it's still,
Yeah,
yeah.
so,
You know,
and this is the problem sometimes with the law, right? The legislature thinks they had something in mind, they don't write it right. and
Uh-huh.
Here we are, so
and then
now
we
we've
get
gotta
to
figure it
spend
out.
The rest of our professional careers figuring this out.
And look, if it
Job
were,
security.
if these were minor issues, I think a lot of our clients would let it slide. But these go to the heart of local control
Yeah.
and your community. And each community's gotta decide for themselves. And, you know, I was thankful that 79 others joined in this appeal and said, yeah, we want to know what the answer is. So,
Yeah.
So since we've joined, does that tie our hands on anything?
no.
Okay.
No,
If you don't get the stay, does Vesper just keep moving forward or
Well, it's up to us.
well, that's right, because of
They
the,
would
Special
come and
use
say,
and-
do you have a Creo? And
Right,
we'd say,
okay.
we do not have a Creo.
Okay.
And then
But
you,
we can say we're about to work on one.
you can say whatever the board wants to say.
okay,
Is it up to the board or the planning commission?
The board.
At this point,
Well-
it's at the
The board
board
now.
because they brought one to us.
Well,
We're done.
It's at the board, but I think as Attorney Homer says, it's a broader policy discussion about what approach do you want to take and where on this spectrum do you want to be? What we've drafted is a workable, which is not going to be a Creo. It's going to be, we don't have a Creo. We have this, and if you want to use this, you can come in. But it doesn't specify where
Where.
the zoning districts that, you know, where.
From everything I'm hearing tonight, nobody's really satisfied with where we are now without doing an overlay. I'm not calling for a vote, but I think that's.
could,
I think
Where
an
we are.
overlay is a good idea.
could we amend our workable and put in an
Yeah.
overlay?
Yeah, I
See if
mean,
they
I
go
would have
for
to
it?
work with his office,
Okay.
with his firm, because he's been
Well, right
doing them
now,
all
it's
over the
in the
state.
ag district.
Right,
That's what
So,
we have right now.
We have, yeah, but we don't have any limitation on, we don't have an overlay district, don't have a limitation on acres, we don't have maximum.
right, or where in the
Two
ag,
thousand acres or something like
So we
that.
could take the main body of this document and.
and add one, okay,
I think procedurally, you know, like Catherine said, you know, the board's gotta decide the policy
Yeah.
issue. And then if the board does that, what the board might want to do is say, we're not gonna adopt it, we're gonna send it back to the planning commission for consideration of either an overlay or a Creo or whatever direction they wanna give the planning commission. And then you're going to, I think it's a substantial change enough where you'd have to notice it up again for a
Yes.
public.
Right.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Okay.
Yes.
well, and then maybe we could get more of the citizens at
Mhm.
the public hearing this time, we only
Now
had
that
a
more word is
handful.
out.
Now that the word's out more, if we could
Mhm.
get more people here so that everybody could hear correct information,
So
cause you know the
we have-
telephone game.
we have a public hearing and the people say, we don't want this in we don't want an overlay, we don't want a industrial
it at all.
overlay, yeah.
Have
Most people need to go to the board meeting.
people have said that they don't want an overlay?
No, they just don't want it
Oh.
at all.
They don't want it at all. So when we say, well, we're gonna put it just in these people's backyards, and they say,
Yeah.
no, we don't want that.
Well, remember, you can always ask for a written legal opinion. He can provide that, you know, or I can provide that, or I'd rather, if you're gonna go this direction, you have work with Attorney Holmier's office, okay? And then you just need to start to talk about the idea that this is a law.
We tried.
Okay.
Yeah, we tried, we're like,
Alright.
it,
It would be
yeah,
nice.
we're not
Those
gunning
words have
for
been
it, people,
thrown
it's happening.
Yeah, there's talk about referendums and recalls and stuff.
they don't
That's
understand
something
it.
that nobody here can help.
It would be very nice if you could just say, no, we don't want it, we're not gonna have it, and you can. There's a risk to that. And it's substantial.
Mhm.
And so what we're trying to do is mitigate against the risk and yet locate it and confine it to an area that is best suited for that, like every other land use. It's the reason why you don't have commercial in the middle of an ag field, right?
Mhm.
If I came to you and said, hey, I just leased up 600 acres of ag property, I wanna build a strip mall, you'd say, you're out of your mind. Why is this land use any different?
Right.
So we're going to cite that land use, we're gonna limit the proliferation of it, so that you don't get 9,000 acres or 6,000 acres, and your township becomes one big solar panel.
Mhm.
If that's what your community wants.
Right.
What do you want? Right, what do you want?
But the odds of getting out of this altogether are slim to
Zero.
none. I mean,
You've already got somebody
especially
here.
with.
Yeah,
A
we're not-
developer who's already.
Yes.
Dixie, did you have a question?
I do.
Okay.
Can you bifurcate it, like say, okay, this overlay district is for solar, this is for battery storage, or is it,
No, you could do it,
okay, so you,
yeah, you could have multiple overlay districts.
and so like, for example, the battery storage, once we do the calculation, let's say it's X number of megawatts, we could limit that battery storage facility to be that number of megawatts for whatever the area would be that they would need to fit that amount of battery units in.
Yeah, the battery storage is a little trickier, right, cause it's pretty small too. I mean, you're talking about 5 to 15 acres typically.
Yeah.
And so if you were going to segregate that land use, then you might want to do multiple overlay districts in areas that are best suited for those particular uses.
Would you have to get to aggregate 50?
That's one.
What's
Yeah.
the-
Megawatts.
Megawatts is the base number under the state law that, are considered under Public Act 233. So like, I'm just wondering, and I'm just kind of picking his brain here, that if you were gonna do these different overlay districts, would you have to allow 50 megawatts of like? renewables?
Well, I think you'd probably want to allow it in a single,
Yeah, that's what I'm
right,
thinking.
yeah.
Yeah, but
And-
any one overlay.
So I mean, I don't know, but how much acreage have they proposed in this?
20, right?
It's, yeah, it's
They're on a
Almost
19 acre
20.
parcel.
But it's pretty condensed to
To
10
like
acres.
10.
About half of it.
Okay.
Well, most of it is wet.
And what's the nameplate capacity then of that project?
200.
Yeah, so
And so on 10 acres.
cut that in half, right?
5 or 6 acres that the actual facility was on, and then they had the transformer area that,
Right.
whatever that was.
Transfer station, no,
The,
is that what it's called? No, what's it called?
the big part at the bottom.
The junction or whatever. Switch, yeah, switch yard,
Switch yard.
thank you.
So the switch yard is to handle all the solar that's gonna come in from across the street.
Okay.
It is.
Why would Vesper pay for that?
Everyone keeps calling me if it's coming to Columbia.
If what?
This 1,000 acres that people keep asking me is coming to Columbia,
All that,
but it's actually in Arlington?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I think a little bit spills over into Columbia, but it's mostly in Arlington,
Well, we don't have a solar farm ordinance, so.
right?
Better get one.
We better get one.
We have to augment them, right? I mean, we would not have to take Arlington into Columbia in order to get it to the power line.
If the solar farm property is in Columbia, then they would have to come to us to be part of the project, and we don't have an ordinance. Which isn't good, I mean, we have to have.
Probably should get
But the power lines are entirely in Columbia, right?
Mhm.
Well, they go through Geneva, and Geneva's doing something too.
So how does a solar farm in Arlington connect to power lines in Columbia?
Road right away.
They'll have some right away or easements.
Yeah, either that or across private property.
Mhm.
But I think this battery storage is taking energy from the lines that are there
Right.
now.
Mhm.
It's taking the energy from the line, storing it, and then they release it, like you said.
Yeah.
For a different cost, or at nighttime, or whatever.
And if they have to go over private property to get to the lines, does that require any sort of permitting or?
Not typically. I mean, other than, there may be some regulatory, not at the local level, general.
Well, there's a few other things on the agenda that I think we would benefit from also hearing from the attorneys, unless anyone has any other questions on the battery storage.
Before we totally move on from the battery storage, there were a couple, letters from PC members that really didn't want this after it had gone up the chain. And there was a word that struck me as pretty serious. The word bride was thrown around.
The word
Yep.
The word bride.
That was me.
Can you explain what you meant by that and how that,
I mean, all the money that Vesper offered the township.
so did they offer something in secret or this was part of
That
the?
was right out in the open.
It's
Yeah,
just part of their deal. It's
part of
just,
their deal.
oh, we're
They'll
gonna.
buy us a fire engine or they'll,
So
fund
technically,
something.
I mean, that's
To me-
not a bride.
To me, that's a bribe. If
Illegal.
somebody offers me money to do
That's what I
something I
wanna
don't
know
wanna do,
is that,
I consider that a bribe.
Yeah,
That's just me.
I wouldn't, I think those are defined legal terms and I wouldn't go that far, right? So for instance, like if I, and because this is routine, right? If I said, hey, we want to put in battery storage and you say, well, our fire department's not equipped for this. Well, we'll provide training and buy a fire truck.
Exactly.
I don't think that's a bribe. That's just responding to the operational issues that may occur.
Especially if you're a special land use and you're gonna go through those special land use standards, and one of them is, do you have the infrastructure and whatever to service this? You might need a fire truck, you might need a brush truck, you might need.
So there was just kind of an unspecified amount that there'll be so much money in Columbia Township, you won't know what to do
Well,
with it.
that of course is a little bit,
Remember them
yeah, they
saying
shouldn't go so far, but
Who
Yeah,
said
who
that?
said that?
The Vesper guy. The
Yeah,
Vesper
he
guy.
was like, oh, we can help the community, we can do that. for
Well, they
your
have, they said they have like a community,
Card.
Yeah, that too.
community engagement fund or something. I mean, they didn't say we're gonna rain down money on your township. You don't know what to do with it.
Well, they're definitely trying to make it sound like like a really good, positive thing, but I didn't feel like it was.
but at the same time, they wanted assurance that they were gonna get a tax abatement, which
so.
we
so
never said they could have.
Saying they think they can do a PA 198 tax abatement, I'm like, there's no, you can't. You can do a PILT for solar, the PILT for the battery storage is possibly starting in the process of legislation, but you can't do a PA 198 tax abatement, thank you. I'm glad, thank you, he's here, I've been saying this, no.
That's gonna-
So will they get a tax abatement? I mean, if they ask, can they ask for a tax abatement?
Not under Public Act 198.
Well, you can always ask.
Okay. Okay.
But
'Cause
we
they
are
were-
free to say no.
You have no, yeah, and there's no authority under that statute. There is a PILT, there's a payment in lieu of taxes statute for the solar, okay? Which there's about a couple of them done on the state, okay? Apparently could be legislation for battery storage. It's not there yet, so it could come along,
Right.
but it's not, and then when people ask you, you don't have to do it, okay? It's not mandatory.
Okay.
Yeah, it
But if they
started right
say,
out, they sounded
no
like they were
tax abatement,
assuming.
I never
Yeah.
thought that tax abatement was mandatory.
They said what?
If we say you can't have your tax abatement, then they say, no tax abatement, no fire
Well,
truck.
I have things I won't say.
Okay.
You know, obviously,
So
you are
I'm just
going
a
to,
layman.
but I'll say in my personal experience, probably in Michael's too, a lot of these companies are coming in from out of state and they come in hot. Okay?
They did.
And they don't
That sounds
understand that
great.
that can be offensive to many people.
Uh-huh.
It's not something we're comfortable
Yeah.
with. What would be more appropriate for you is to go through our zoning ordinance, talk about what our standards are, talk about how you're gonna meet our standards, talk about what a community host agreement is, et cetera. I can't tell people how to do business. I don't like when people come in front of my townships and treat them like they're either stupid
That's.
or whatever. So just, you know,
They came in the first time, they were like, oh, yeah, and we did this, and then we all were like, we're gonna start asking questions, and they weren't prepared for us to ask questions.
Catherine's so nice about it, right? This is what happens. I said, well, the developer says he's gonna pay you this. My client says, tell him to shove it. Done. So, it's easy. And that's where we landed.
yeah.
So,
So,
you know,
lawfully, as a special land use, you can ask for things that you need to, a truck, a fire truck, whatever, but it's not a, hey, here's how much I'm gonna give you. you know,
Okay.
that
Well,
just,
that's what they
that
did.
just
Well, that's
generally,
kind of what they did.
that just generally backfires and.
What, about the fire trucks?
They're concerned that they're gonna have to send $1 million to Bloomingdale school, because, you know, all the taxes
For
they pay.
Bangor schools,
It's all gonna
well,
go to the
yes,
schools.
that's part of
They
the
did,
tax,
like-
that's part of this tax structure in Michigan, welcome to our world.
Yeah.
So figure it out, ladies and gentlemen, put into the project cost and figure it out. And if there's a solar pill, we can talk about it, we just did one for this 809 megawatt project, and actually municipality came out ahead under the pill by over $250,000 over 20 years. So we did the pill, but you're gonna have to do the analysis, there is no pill, payment in lieu of taxes.
Or
For
battery.
battery storage yet, okay?
Okay.
So all this talk about tax abatement and whatnot, we don't see it under P 198, which is the tax, you know, tax.
Here's the other thing too, and I don't know what's gonna happen. Obviously, there's gonna be a new administration. Last time that administration was in office, subsidies dried up, and they're promising to do it again. So if that happens, do you have then viable projects anyways? And I don't know the answer to that.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that.
Very interesting.
If we did a Creo, can you put things in there like batteries would have to be made in America or any language like that?
Probably not.
No.
Okay.
No,
And just for your information, they already said where their batteries are coming from, which is Southeast Asia.
Yeah, that doesn't mean I haven't had clients that didn't do it. They did it anyways, but, you know, I think it's an interstate commerce problem. And so you know, I'm not sure you have the authority. Now, they weren't challenged on it either, so of course, they don't have any projects, so
Yeah,
so maybe that worked for
yeah,
them.
that's, you know, you can do what you want until somebody says no.
Very good on that portion.
I'm good. You good, Karen?
I am.
Kara?
And what happens at 7? Can we continue the meeting we're on?
Yeah, you're in a
Yeah.
planning commission meeting, you can just keep going.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what's on your regular agenda, but
We're just trying to finish up these ordinances.
you know, you can just keep going and, you know, on your special meeting.
Yeah.
We do have the ZBA showing up because we're going over some
Okay.
ordinance changes on that, so I just,
Anything you want to ask us?
Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to keep them waiting too long, but I think a couple of these other items on the agenda would be worth
Important.
hitting before you guys
Mhm.
leave. Okay, so, I'll keep speaking to this because this
At
came
the
through
board
the planning
level now,
commission,
too.
it's the board level again. D2 on the agenda, accessory building on vacant lots, cottage home, square foot, barn dominium. Karen, jump in on this also, but to tee this up, the planning commission has been going through our ordinances for a while. There's been a lot of, there's been some changeover with zoning administrators, lots of changeover on the board, changeover on the planning commission, confusion about which was the current version of the ordinances, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what resulted in that was ordinances that were very cumbersome in a hard to read and hard to manage use format. So we've been going through trying to streamline it, make it easier to read, put stuff in proper sections, and along the way, noticing things that we think might need to be updated. So a few of the issues that came up in that process were our ordinance on building, accessory buildings on vacant lots, the minimum square footage of a dwelling, and the ability to build a barn dominium in our township. And those were all three things that have come up in
To plan.
zoning permit requests to Tasha for just, I guess, issues that our township was experiencing. So we tried to address those ordinances and passed or recommended to adopt some new language about those issues. And we sent that through the process to go to the county planning commission. As I think both of you know, that was stopped by our supervisor. we requested, an opinion from our attorney on that, who said that that shouldn't have happened, so they did go through to the county planning commission. I think the notes are in there, correct, Karen, on what their determination was?
Yeah.
It was in here somewhere.
The
Yeah.
minutes are, yeah.
Yeah, draft.
They did not concur with our
Accessory dwelling.
language specifically on accessory buildings. They cited,
A concern.
ways that they agreed with why we were doing it, but then also some concerns. We really haven't been able to address that at the board level because when we met last time, we didn't have those notes available. So the board hasn't been able to review those. But there's also been other things happening relating to this issue. We got a certified letter from a property owner requesting a public hearing prior to us voting on that. So yeah, so
Okay.
that's a procedural question I'd like to ask, because we already did hold a public hearing on these text amendments.
At the planning commission.
But there's something in the zoning enabling act, because it's been used against me before too, that if somebody, a property owner sends a certified letter to the clerk requesting a public hearing, is it on specific, is it on rezoning or is it just on any zoning or assessment? He's looking it up.
Okay,
There is that provision in the zoning enabling act, that somebody can request a public hearing at the township board,
Okay.
certified letter to the clerk. And my case was on a rezoning, and this is a text amendment, so, yeah, no network, no connection.
So I have,
So,
oh,
yes.
I'm sorry.
So would they have to be granted a public hearing if the board votes it down anyway?
They would have to be granted a public hearing, which you would hold before the board votes,
Mhm.
Okay.
okay?
would you need to be noticed and everything like that? The typical,
I think, so
Yeah.
what I had was within 300 feet, this would
Right.
just be noticed in the newspaper, because it's a text amendment, it's not about a specific piece of property. So, yes.
property owner?
So the person who requested it needed to be, I think, we're trying to look up the statute, we can't get on the internet.
No.
But.
No, I had one. I think the internet went down because the guest was not there anymore.
Okay,
Do the CTHA.
I didn't actually get a copy of the letter, but he sent it and it said, I'm requesting a public hearing with the board. Is that what it said?
Has anyone-
Blueberries, capital B,
oh,
333.
blueberries.
Has anyone seen the letter?
I think I did see it, but I don't.
I haven't
think
seen
have it with me.
I was-
There are now 2 letters,
Okay,
and I'm not sure they're for the same thing. I think one was for the vacant, the accessory
He found it.
buildings,
Let him
and the
read it
other
to
one
you.
was battery storage.
okay.
But our main question was, do we have to grant it if we're not entertaining it? Like, let's say we decide to drop the matter altogether. Would we still have a public hearing? Or is it
Well-
only if we think we're gonna vote on something?
So the statute says the legislative body shall grant a hearing on a proposed ordinance provision to an interested property owner who requests a hearing by certified mail addressed to the clerk of the legislative body. A hearing under this subsection is not subject to the requirements of section 103, except that notice of the hearing shall be given to the interested property owner in the manner required in section 103(3) and 1 and 4. And that's because it's not a public hearing per se, it's a hearing to that interested property owner. Now, it's done at a meeting, so it is in the public meeting.
But you don't have to publish it in the paper, you have to send,
Okay,
the
so
person
the
who
criteria is
requests-
different.
the person who requests it has to get notice of the hearing,
Right.
so they can be there. But, and they have to be a property owner, that was somebody's question,
Did
Well,
you have to be a property owner?
An interested property
an
owner,
interested property owner.
which
Or
I'm not
does it
sure
mean
what
they have
that
to live in
means
the
on
township or is it just
on a
something?
text amendment,
Yeah.
right? So
Right,
every person is an interested property owner on a text amendment, I suppose.
So then does this person then plead their case to the board?
Yeah,
I'm guessing
basically.
They then have a chance to speak to the board specifically, and then does the board take action on whatever, or they're just talking?
Isn't it almost the same as a public comment?
yeah, what's the
Yeah.
difference?
but this is a specific about this particular text amendment.
Okay,
It's in the statute, they can do it. It sounds like some people have done it.
So they get put on the agenda
Yep.
to
Yeah.
speak on that
Public
item.
hearing on zoning ordinance
Okay.
text amendment for accessory structures on vacant land.
Now, typically, our public comments are limited to 3 minutes. Is this an exception then?
No.
Is
No,
this-
it could be.
Yeah, I mean,
So it just gives kind of
It should be
a
an
spot
exception,
in
that's
the
just my
agenda.
opinion.
It should what?
It should be, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, so this is
You
at the
should give
board.
the person the opportunity to speak, even if it takes longer than 3 minutes. That's just my opinion.
You can do whatever you want.
So
If
it's
you
not. a
spend
public hearing.
$9 to send that
It's a
certified.
pub,
letter-
it's called a public hearing, it is called a public hearing, but we don't have to publish it in the newspaper. We don't have to send it to everybody within 300 feet because it's not about a specific property. It's about a zoning ordinance text amendment. We do have to send the people who requested it by certified mail a notice that there will be a public hearing at the township board meeting on such and such date and time in response to your request about
yeah,
the
see,
ZO text
I'm
amendment.
not, like, it's not a public hearing in the normal sense of
Right.
things, right?
I
In
think that's
fact,
what confused me.
in the statute itself, they refer to public hearing in subparagraphs 1 and 2. But in paragraph 4, they don't. They say that the legislative body shall grant a hearing
Hearing.
to an interested property owner, not to anybody else.
So it's just a hearing.
It's
It's
a
a
hearing.
hearing for that
For those
person, at that person's
person,
request.
for those
Okay.
So
people.
how would you go about getting a public hearing for the actual?
We already did that at the. planning
You,
commission.
you are, the township board is free to schedule another public hearing if it determines it's necessary. Always.
Might change. I had a question about text amendments. Is there a limit to how much you can do in a text amendment,
No, you could change the whole zoning ordinance if you wanted
in a
to.
text amendment?
Yeah, that's how you would do it. So you could have several amendments together at one time. You could have one at a time. You could do the whole zoning ordinance. So
Okay.
there's no
They're
limit.
kind of
So what-
expensive, so sometimes the more you do at a time, you save a little
It's
bit of money.
efficient.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, so.
that is true. You know, to publish and all that, it could be more efficient to do it all at one time.
Is it imperative that a text amendment goes to and from the county through the clerk? Or is zoning
It
administrator
goes-
fine?
It's, I don't even think it says, I don't know.
Says the township.
Does it say?
No, it just says the township shall send it
So the
to.
zoning administrator could send it.
Uh-huh,
And that's the process we
That's
use,
what has
right?
been done.
Yeah,
yeah.
and really, there's no place for the township supervisor to remove anything from the county planning commission agenda. That communication is coming from the planning commission, it's required by law to come from the planning commission. It's there, they make whatever comments they want, it comes back to you, do what their comments, whatever you want.
So we should really consider them as separate entities and the board does not really dictate what they are to work on or not work on, or only.
Well, sometimes.
A little bit.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. So I suspect, although I haven't looked, that the planning commission has the ability to initiate amendments on its own. And so too, does the board have the authority to initiate amendments through the planning commission?
That's, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's a question I was gonna ask, because we've been told, or it's been suggested that the planning commission needs to fill out an application of sorts to do a text
No.
amendment
So
No,
procedurally.
I'd like to read something real quick out of the zoning ordinance that's in the packet. The first line, each proposed amendment not originating with the planning commission shall be referred to the planning commission for its consideration and recommendation. And then A says filling out an application. So in our existing ordinance,
but don't you think that means if somebody from the public wants to
Oh, that
initiate a
person,
text
yeah.
amendment,
That
they
they do.
fill out, right?
It doesn't say that the planning commission has
the
to fill out an
planning commission is
application.
exempted, that says not originating with the planning
Planning
commission.
commission.
Right.
Why would
Right.
the planning commission ever fill out an application to
Now
itself?
you're in.
I don't know. It just seems, yeah, that's
So
silly.
the other part of that is text amendments do cost money. So there could be a conversation with the board that says, we would like to look into amending the ordinance for this thing. I mean, I know that you have a budget and everything, but it does cost money, so there is always that, some communication with the board to maybe have a, sure, you can look into that or amend that, or what's your budget, or, you know, as an example to be, you know,
Are you required to revise your master plan anytime you revise your zoning with a text amendment?
no.
No,
I didn't think so, but I had to ask.
If you change the zoning map, possibly, or if you add something new that's maybe not in your master plan, you might want to look into it, but it's, you know, you're supposed to do your zoning according to your master.
and every 5 years you must look at it, right? Okay?
The master plan?
Every 5 years it's required under the,
But you don't have to redo it.
no, we just
Correct.
have to consider it at that point in
Right.
time. Do we need to do anything or not?
And I have that on my time up, so.
Right.
Okay. And what about capital improvement plans? My understanding was that,
Do you have?
hey, this
public
is my
utility?
chance to
Do you
ask,
have-
and we've got experts here. So we have a capital improvement plan that's partway through a process, or what,
No, it should be done.
but where is it? Do we know?
I don't know.
sent all this to Jason, he didn't pass it on?
This is before my time.
Okay,
I,
well, I emailed you out, so in my records, I have a public hearing that the planning commission had to adopt it. I don't remember what year it was, and then.
That was
it's been
before
on the
me.
board agenda. It should have already been adopted,
Really?
yes,
Okay, that's good to know. Meanwhile,
yes, so there's a copy of it, and it should have been adopted. November,
Here's, I got that.
it was right before I, right. Stop working here.
It was
There you go.
before I came on to the planning
It hasn't been
commission,
just
because
before
I've
you.
never,
Like
When did you
November
uh,
22?
January of 23, yeah.
November
23?
2022.
Uh-huh.
Capital.
Oh,
okay. so
22.
you have read
No,
that.
I have had nothing to do with the capital
You
improvement.
can
plan
probably
ever.
tell who was
So-
on the planning commission and the board at the time, and we
Yeah.
can try to track it through. and
Yes.
see.
It's planning commission.
It was the end of, it was the end of COVID.
Yes,
Okay.
I have
Came
the
in the
copy
middle of
of the draft and the
If the planning commission and check.
the public notice.
So,
And I mean, I don't have any of the board documents,
The
so.
planning commission is exempted. When are they exempted?
So
By
I
requirement
thought
of
you
charter.
only needed a capital improvement plan when you had public utilities.
My reading on it is the same, that you only have to do it every year when you have public utilities. But we have a situation where I think somebody on the board wants a capital improvement plan. And said we don't have one. And,
We do have one, there is one.
okay,
Christie, I think Christie wrote it,
Yeah, I think it was Christie's kind of.
okay.
so I can email you that information if you like it.
I think it would be good to have, don't you?
Yep.
Of course,
So you should be
Okay.
able to find
the clerk's office.
in the records of those dates
Yes.
of when the board acted on it. It would have been
Okay.
after
Okay,
November
so-
of 2022.
So we just both sat here and read the statute.
Okay,
And it says a township may prepare and adopt a capital improvement program. However, all the requirements in subsection 1 is only mandatory for a township if the township alone or jointly with other local units of government owns or operates a water supply or sewage disposal system. You don't have either of those.
So
We don't even have to have a capital
The
improvement plan?
current supervisor thought we had to have one to get grants.
right,
Well,
He wanted it
you
to
might-
get grants.
Yeah.
that
You
could be
might,
true,
to get grants.
Yeah.
yes.
What are you
that could
getting
be
grants for? Parks?
You
Fire-
might-
Fire engine.
true. No, you can get one of those.
What did
We're trying to get fire engines from whoever will give it to us.
Okay, so, that's something, again, you can ask Attorney Homer, you could ask me, we could write a quick written legal opinion on this, but if that's, obviously you are exempt from having to do this, but if you want to do it, we would look at this language a little more closely. It says if the planning commission exempted, the legislative body either shall prepare and adopt the plan or separate, or shall have someone delegate that to somebody else, so,
And the planning commission did do it.
okay.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's where it sits.
That's
Yes.
fun.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing emails back from 2021 about this
Yes,
since I took over Beverly's email box. So I mean,
yes.
it goes way back, but I just,
have a copy of the draft and I have the public hearing notice because I drafted it for the public hearing.
well, we might have to update it now.
Yeah.
Since 21
okay.
is the thought.
So it does need to be updated every
Well,
5 years?
No, the master plan is every 5 years.
Okay,
The capital
okay. I'm sorry, I
improvement plan,
thought-
you don't even have to do.
Okay,
Yeah, the master plan is
Right.
maybe 2 years from now.
yeah,
Is it mandated then, are you saying? For the
To
master plan?
review it.
Just to review it?
Review it.
Okay.
the
So
master.
every 5 years on the agenda, the planning commission needs to review it and decide if they want to update it or not, correct?
Okay, this is saying 2020. So is
So
it
it'd be
5
next
years?
year.
Yes,
5 years.
5 years. So
Okay.
2025, approximately about when the time it was adopted, it'll be on the agenda to
Right,
review.
review, okay. And was there anything, the minimum, do we need to go over the minimum dwelling size?
Well, I really want to move to the other part of the meeting for the ZBA, but and if this is a question that requires a longer answer, we can do a phone call or something, but there's been a lot of discussion about text amendments as it relates to the master plan. And obviously, the master plan is a guide. But there's been suggestions that in order to do any text amendments, we need to go out and survey people and have all these different procedural steps to make sure that it doesn't contradict the master plan in any way. And my understanding of a master plan is it's a little bit interpretive, right? It's somewhat
Yeah.
subjective.
And open, yeah.
For example, one of the arguments against the text amendment for accessory buildings on vacant land was that it doesn't comply with our master plan. Well, when I read the master plan relating to future ag use, because that text amendment was specifically speaking to our agricultural district, there's something in there that says over the next 10 years, we're hoping to turn our agricultural percentage from 89% to 69%, like developmentally. I mean, I guess how I interpret it is like, we're okay with this being a little bit less agricultural in order to allow for some development. So who's the ultimate arbiter of whether a text amendment is in compliance with your master plan? Because the master plan gets thrown around here like it is a club. I'm just telling you, we get beat down by the master plan, and I don't know.
Is it a guide or like a?
It's a
Model.
guide. And then one way of implementing it is through your zoning ordinance. So you're not handcuffed to it.
No, the minute you change that, people will come and arrest you and take you.
I mean, the master plan wants us to allow for renewable energy, and none of our citizens want any of it in
Yeah.
township, so.
That's pretty.
I mean, how close do we follow that thing?
So look, you want to generally remain in compliance, right? Because it serves as a
Sure.
plan which underlies the basis for your zoning.
Right.
When you get really out of compliance, and I mean really
Really.
out of compliance, then it starts to call into question the legitimacy of your zoning ordinance because it's not based upon a plan. Having a text amendment allowing an accessory structure on a vacant parcel without a principal permitted use is not that issue, period. So do you have to do a survey for a text amendment? No.
No.
It's not required legally, okay? The question is, does it generally comply with your master plan, such that the master plan still serves as a basis to support your zoning ordinance as a general overall plan? The answer to that's yes, then you're fine. What happens sometimes is development occurs in ways that you don't anticipate every 5 years, right?
Mhm.
And so somebody will come in and they will say, hey, I want to rezone this, and it's out of compliance with your future land. use.
Blue Oval,
Right,
okay, Blue Oval comes, okay, the plant up in Big Rapids comes. That wasn't in our master plan, we never anticipated. One in Big Rapids was industrial, but Blue Oval, okay? So now our master plan is out of sync, right?
Yeah.
and so then
Yeah,
you open up that process, revise your master plan. Now you look at, one or more elements of that master plan to then support what it is that you did, right? You're not gonna, nobody's gonna rush down to the courthouse and sue you over that. It just doesn't happen that way.
Well.
Well, I was just gonna say.
Yeah,
Around
this is
here.
Columbia.
Well, they wouldn't win.
They
Let me put
wouldn't
it that way.
Okay.
I mean, if you amended your text to say, yeah, you can have accessory structures on vacant property. I have clients doing that now all over the
Everybody
place.
does
I
it.
just had another one who did it recently. Now they,
Everybody who's on lakes allows.
right,
The house on the lake, accessory structure on a back lot, usually
But
within
does it
some.
have to
certain
be contiguous?
distance.
Or-
Some say yes, some say within a certain number of feet. It's up to you to decide. And then you usually deed restrict them somehow so
Yeah.
that they must be kept together.
So, yeah, we've not.
the other
looked at
thing
that.
that they're allowing, right, are auxiliary dwelling units,
Right.
Mhm.
right? Is that in violation of your master plan? Well, you're not gonna have a specific provision in your master plan that says,
You can't have a.
you know, one principal residential structure on one parcel. That's not in your master plan.
Your
It
zone.
might be in your zoning, and now you're amending that to provide more than one, right? But based on certain criteria, mostly related to family members living there as well, so.
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry so much about the master plan. I mean, I can't recall in 25 years, anybody succeeding on a successful, your master plan doesn't support your ordinance theory.
Do we need to, was there a question or anything about the barn dominium or the minimum dwelling? It says cottage home square footage, but it's actually minimum dwelling size, which we just took.
I think they
I
all
don't-
fall in the same bucket, right, Tasha?
720 square feet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so-
that's-
So
Yeah.
the amendment was to remove the next line, which was an additional 150 square feet for the third bedroom.
Right,
So the 720 is already in the ordinance. The proposal was to remove that extra line so that I don't have to do math and see.
right. And I don't believe that the county didn't raise any
And
concerns
then
about
the,
that. Barn dominium,
The foundation.
Which would
the
allow for
current
barn
Foundation says you have to have a permanent perimeter foundation, which prohibits post-frame construction housing, which is very popular and,
right.
less cost to build a
That's the
home.
barn dominium.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that's what we wanted to open up in the
So
township.
Basically, the foundation would be whatever the standard of the building code allows.
Right.
State
There's-
construction code.
Yeah, there have been quite a few requests for that in this township, so that's why we took it up.
So if the
But-
board receives a text amendment that has three different things on it, the vacant lots, the minimum square footage and the barn dominium, wouldn't the board be able to say, we agree
Line item?
with
Yep.
2 out of
Yeah.
3?
You can line item it.
Regardless really of what the county said? I mean,
Yes.
hopefully
Yeah.
they
Do
would
whatever you
consider
want.
it.
You
Correct.
don't have to do what the county says.
Right.
Okay.
You can file that in the round filing cabinet if you prefer.
The only thing is if you think you're gonna approve 2 of them and not the other one, you might wanna split them into 3 ordinances, because if they're all in one ordinance and you wanna deny any part of it, you're gonna deny it. So you might just wanna split them out into 3 separate ordinances so you can act on them separately. But you do not have to do what the county says. You can take it under consideration, and go from there.
So would they decide that at the meeting, or would I prepare the three? Them separate, so, cause I feel like
Aren't they three separate sections
They are.
anyways?
They're
They're not like
separate.
one.
They're in one
but
ordinance.
they're in one ordinance.
Oh,
If you're gonna
okay.
adopt an ordinance, you're either gonna
Right.
adopt it with 3 components to it, or you're gonna not have 3
I
components.
see.
You separate into 3 ordinances, yes on this one, no on this one, yes on this one.
No
So if
line
you
item
already
either.
present it with all 3 though, the board could send it back and say.
They
we're
don't
gonna-
have to send it back, just direct the attorney to, or Tasha to split it into 3 ordinances.
Okay, that we like these two, but not this one, we'd like to either
Just
say no, or talk about it more, or send it back, or.
Okay.
And then,
separate
yes,
them.
I'll just redo the
You can do
format.
that because we haven't taken that up yet.
No, that's because I just got the minutes from the county, so I
Right.
haven't actually sent it to the board yet to be on their agenda.
Okay.
So,
So we went over that.
Karen, you have any other questions?
Well, it's kind of specific. Aren't we also being asked that we need to have really a pretty heavy packet in order to approve anything?
yes, I did print that
comes-
off, so, yeah.
I don't have
I'll
that
make a
list
copy
in
of this.
front of me.
For you, Karen.
I guess I thought that if the planning
need to have a
commission. If the planning
What'd she
commission
say?
has already
Have a drink.
reviewed and approved and passed it up to the board.
Mhm.
Are the board members each supposed to do their own thorough investigation on
No.
everything? Or
No.
rely at least somewhat
You would-
on the recommendation of the planning?
You can rely, you would have the planning commission
What
minutes,
do?
your joint members, Jason, he would talk to the board and say, this is what the planning commission recommended, this is why we recommended it. You could have the minutes from the planning commission meeting, you could have the minutes from the county planning commission meeting if you wanted. What else would you possibly need?
A survey,
Surveys and
No,
there's a big list of
topographical
things.
maps.
no,
Yeah, but
Affidavits.
anyway, so if it comes to the board and one or two board members wants more information that's not there.
okay,
Wouldn't their choices be, I'd really like more information and be specific about what they need, or they can just vote no, I don't have what I
they could
need.
make a motion to table it
Table
till
it,
they get
yeah.
additional information and ask for that information.
Mhm.
Okay, or they could, and if they don't get a second on that motion to table, okay, nobody seconds them, or if they get a second and the motion's defeated, all right? And somebody then makes a motion to say, I make a motion to approve ordinance 275. And then if you get a second,
kind of what she's
referring
to,
you know, you go ahead and you vote on it. Okay, roll call votes on ordinances always, okay? So
All right,
I don't even, I can't even,
But I do know that the county, I send the stuff to the county and they do not require
no,
any of
this
this
is,
stuff.
no,
They,
no, this is not.
and I have asked them,
but it paralyzed the board on at least one, because
yeah, so the counties, when I talk to them what they want a copy of the amendment and the planning commission minutes with the motion. That's what they want, so that's what I send to them, and then the little review and,
okay.
I would, you know, this is,
but
you
to
know,
me, a lot of this is a procedure thing, like, back in the day, pre-2006, why would we still have this?
no,
I mean-
I'm not sure, is this,
So.
I don't think we should have well, you can have a checklist, but I don't think you really need it. I think you go with what the planning commission minutes say, what the, you know, if you have a report from Tasha.
So it wasn't nonfeasance on another board member's part if they didn't try to redo everything the planning commission had already done.
I got nothing. I'm gonna let Michael handle this.
It's okay, you're shaking your head is enough.
No, it's really not this hard.
Right.
That's what, it shouldn't be this,
It's really not that,
it
I
shouldn't
mean,
be this hard, and we've got somebody brand new who we don't wanna scare off.
Well, this is part of the reason why we really need you to weigh in on this stuff, because it's
They need
kind
to
of crippled
hear.
our,
They need to hear that
Effectiveness.
it's not
yeah,
so
it shouldn't, right? I mean, the
So-
planning commission,
Yeah.
right? Planning commission is a recommending body. You can recommend whatever it is you'd like to recommend.
We can
The
recommend
township-
that every house be painted purple.
That's right. The township board is the legislative body responsible for final adoption of any zoning amendments. Period. End of story. Each of those elected members of the board get one vote and they have their own opinion on what they believe is right or wrong for your community in terms of zoning. It's really that simple.
But according to this, in the zoning enabling act, it tells us what we're supposed to review.
No, don't, just ask me or him for a written legal opinion, we will provide one, and we will all move on.
okay,
Because this is crippling.
Go ahead and
You're
ask.
not-
It is crippling.
You're not being able to get through business, it's,
Yes.
you know,
I mean, even
we've been doing this for 30 years,
Even-
25 years, I mean, we. know how
Even
to
the
do this.
legislative body has disagreements over what they believe is right or wrong.
Uh-huh.
You know what you do then?
You vote.
Vote.
Right.
Yeah, you vote no and you vote yes and you move on. Yeah.
And something happens. You
But
move
if everything is blocked by a procedural thing because this one person thinks it's procedurally wrong because the township has been sued before by this person
by this person.
and other people have sued, I mean, there's been lots of lawsuits with the township, so I'm sure some of it is on the, side of caution,
Well,
but.
I think both he and I have been doing zoning for a long
Or
time.
ask the zoning administrator who's been the zoning administrator for 25 years. Like, this was never sent to me.
Well, look, like I said, I've got I've got members of a board who disagree all the time on what they believe is right, and then somebody makes a motion, there's either support or not, and then there's a vote. That's the way it works. It's called democracy, right? So, other than that, it's not that complicated.
So would you like a legal opinion of this procedure email?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
So flip a coin and ask which one.
No,
of us
that's
do it.
you.
No.
Do rock, paper, scissors.
Because, yeah, because I suspect these originated the planning commission.
Oh, I know where they originate. It's not the planning. I'll copy you.
Well, thank you both for coming.
Yes,
I'm
thank you very
sure,
much for clearing up
you
a
know,
lot of
a
questions.
class action lawsuit with 75 plaintiffs is much more exciting and less remedial than walking us through step number one of how to
I
govern.
appreciate having us both here, so you could hear both of us, and this is such
It's
a.
really, really
This
helpful.
renewable thing is such a moving target.
Yep.
Yeah.
That we'll find out in a couple weeks.
But I do think
Do
that
not
with
leave the
the,
office on the 29th of November.
yeah.
Like Friday. Nobody can accept any applications.
A lot of good information. Thank you.
Yeah, very, very helpful. Thank you.
All right, we'll let you get on with the rest of your night.
Safe travels.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Did any dear?
Oh, well.
The bad
They
accident.
have been hitting us,
Oh,
actually.
really?
Yeah, twice this year that we've
You
got
guys
it.
need to take a break?
I
didn't.
Just maybe let's
Okay.
adjourn and do a bathroom break.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then
So
we'll,
are we,
Okay.
adjourning this meeting?
are we
and starting
adjourning
the
this
next
meeting
one?
and then
Okay.
starting the next
Let's
one,
do
and I
that
just
first.
get to do we have a separate?
Adjourned at
Agenda?
7:26.
Let's do, sure, let's adjourn.
Okay, oh, I'm adjourning the,
Motion to adjourn.
oh, yeah. Second,
Who, you move?
Dave just seconded it, all in favor?
Aye.
Anytime.
Any nays?
No.
It is, oh, it's, I got
7:26.
Yep, 7:26.
Okay.
An actual packet for this meeting.
Yeah, nice meeting you too.
You know what? It wasn't attached. It was attached. I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
I got like 100 packets. for this
Yeah,
meeting.
no, but I went, I looked at it and I went,
You get motions.
I don't see an attachment. So, but I figured you'd have one. I figured you'd make a copy. Yeah, I'll make a copy. Yeah. I can go do it, Tasha. Okay. I'm sorry. Well, and you know, I didn't want to,
I had
my cat.
another,
I have calcification in my.
Yes.
Did you ever?
And you go, which one? So what happened was.
No. No, these are just cheaters.
Person, he's the clerk. She started.
Yeah, I gotta have these to see out there and then these to read.
Well, and.
Well, yeah, so since your Michigan file law, there's more than one. So.
Yeah.
okay, which one do you like?
Fire hose.
We can go. Well, then.
Well, a lot of it's still Greek to me, you know.
Oh, that's not, you want a family.
I don't get a whole lot of time to really
So.
study and investigate.
So the MTA is gonna have some online,
And so,
starting
you know,
in
that's why I take my laptop.
February, they're gonna have online classes. In January, I'm still here.
Yeah, it's.
I,
It's really not.
really think
it
that
shouldn't be
everybody
this
should
harsh.
sign up and
It
take a
is
little
too
bit about
bad.
it, just to help give us more, you know,
Sure,
get our feet under us
yeah.
well and just be able to speak for.
Yeah, right. I know what you're gonna say next. Yeah, all right.
Thanks, Michael.
Happy retirement.
Have you ever heard of this? No.
Ah.
They will.
How you been, man? Good. Busy? Are you really?
Yeah, we poured concrete on Monday and we made a seal yesterday and.
My wife.
Trying to get stuff in and shored up before the winter hits.
Yeah, then I still got some drywall to do at the neighbor's place. So I can get final inspections out of that.
My daughter's 10.
And that job's we kind of cut her throat a bit.
And they supposed to do that every.
Freebie.
They looked at me.
But, you know, I made a commitment. We'll see it through. Thank God it's just right next to me, so you know, I don't have any travel.
All right.
Yeah, there's that.
You know, it's in Colin, you know, you're working for the next 3
If I have to lose money, at least I don't have to commute.
Yeah, exactly, so. Yeah, it's been hectic. It's been a good summer.
That's good.
So, did you get a
Thank
call
you.
to the recording or
Oh, I don't know. Probably not.
not? I'm not gonna cuss that. I wasn't going to.
Should we be recording our meetings too? We're not that technically savvy, probably, Kara, are we?
I'll get it going when you're done, just end it. There's a button that says end.
Okay. And what will you do? Break those apart?
No, it'll just be one.
Okay.
I mean, I can end this one and start a new one.
I just don't know how we file them away or
Oh,
find them later.
And they're linked to the meeting and iCompass, so it's essentially the same meeting, so I would just.
Okay, okay.
I'm asking all that. Stay right here. Yeah, right here. We get. Yeah.
I almost.
Now this is.
thank you, all of you, for coming and agreeing to do that.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Karen. Appreciate it.
So who else is this guy in the ZBA?
Yeah.
Was supposed to be Kevin?
Yeah. Didn't you used to be on
You, or did you discover it?
it? Then I again?
Was anyone else here?
Was kicked off the last time. It looked like I could do that.
She's the alternate. This is the alternate. She can.
You just missed you.
So then what did you call everyone and say?
Oh. All right.
Did you sneeze on some?
I did it.
Oh,
Just being brat.
okay.
Yeah. All right, let's call this meeting to order of Planning Commission at 7:31 PM. I apologize that we are a little bit late and appreciate your patience. Let's do Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call. Anita Manley. Here. Dave Marcelletti.
Here.
Cheryl Bowles here. Trevor Phillips.
Here.
Jason Bull.
Here.
All right, so we need to take a look at the agenda and then I'll entertain a motion.
I would move to approve the agenda with the revision of moving the old business item up as high as we can, since the zoning board of appeals has already waited long. Can we put that up higher, Tasha, so that we can get right to that?
What we like that.
Yeah, you can move it right up
Okay.
to below approving the agenda and then after we're, then.
We can go through the minutes after all of
Okay.
that.
That's really the only thing on the agenda,
So
do
moving
that.
it
Okay.
to what?
We're moving it to right after the approval of the agenda, so that'll
We're gonna
become
move it
E.
to- Move it, it'll be F.
Moving I up to after D.
Yes, E, gotcha.
But we need a second on that motion.
Can I second it? I second the motion. All in favor? All right, any nays? Okay, so it is moved. All right,
Go, Tasha.
Do you want me to start or do you want to?
Okay.
Okay.
I asked Tasha for us to get together. I'm Lee Abernathy, the chairman of the zoning board of appeals. Nita's on the board, with Chuck Avery is on, and Dixie's an alternate. And I don't even know how long I've been chair, but it's been somewhere around 5 years, huh?
Hot minute.
It's been a while. And one of the problems that we run into as a zoning board of appeals is there are the 4 questions that we're supposed to ask ourselves as we're in a board of appeals. And I don't know if you've seen them or not, you read them. They are legalese, they're confusing. it just always caused a consternation. Well, Tasha's predecessor, I asked her if we could go back and rewrite it. Something never happened. So I'm back putting pressure on Tasha, says, I want to
Every
rewrite this.
meeting, yeah, I'm like, yeah. Here we are.
Okay, so here we
Are
go.
those 4 questions in this packet somewhere?
No,
No, not that. That's 10 other
here.
other
Look at
townships.
what we have right now.
Okay.
I'll just read the first one to give you an
Okay.
idea.
Yep.
This is what we're supposed to ask ourselves as somebody comes up with that special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land use, structure or building in the same zoning district so as to present such a unique situation that a precedent will not be established for other properties in the zoning district to also ask the same or similar change throughout the zoning appeal process. Read that to people who walk into this audience and the eyes glass open.
My eyes.
They have no, am I right, Anita? They have no idea.
And I
And I
put the
tell you the
question
truth,
every
we glass over, we try to figure out whether or not what that is, what does that mean in the case? So the other 3 are just the same.
And it's a yes or no. We have to answer yes or no.
Yeah, you have to answer yes or no, and the way you read it, it could be yes to her, no to me.
But
Okay.
we're trying to say the same thing.
Yeah.
We're understanding the question.
Exactly. Now Tasha gave, which the package you held up there, I asked her for some examples of other townships.
Oh.
She gave us a list of 10 townships. I read every one of them multiple times. And I will tell you, I'm not happy with any of them.
Yeah,
The closest one to the one I like is number 6, if you wanna go back and read that. That's as close as I like.
I labeled the numbers all at the
Yeah,
top.
you can find it.
I see
So
that.
don't even go look in there right now, okay? This is from when you have a bad case of insomnia, try reading that. Okay, what I did was I took what I thought was the real questions. I asked them in a way that everybody under the sun could understand them. And the way I've worded it is the answer, if you answer yes to any one of these questions, it's an automatic denial. So that if Tasha hands this to somebody, before they even apply the $500,
Yeah,
they can look at this and say, oh, crap, I can't get around that one. Everybody gets saved time, money, and the whole thing.
and
Now,
I do send them the standards when I send them the application, so they do have a copy of the zoning board.
Oh,
of
we each get a
appeals
copy of it?
chapter.
yeah, I got a copy for everybody here, okay?
Made her own question.
As you will see, compared to the other thing, this is a lot shorter, it's a lot straighter to the point, and it says right up front, if it's a no, it's a no-go.
Okay.
Which makes life a whole lot simpler for Tasha, for me, and for the applicants.
So you've actually added a question, but you've simplified the first 4.
Yeah.
Or
yeah,
separated
but
it
see,
out where it was
Yeah, I made
appropriate.
it 5 questions, and if you go read that package, you will find some that have 2 pages of
Yeah.
questions.
Some of them
Yeah.
are credit.
2
Is
pages
there
of
one for
questions.
me?
Huh? Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Did Dixie
Chuck,
get
I think
one?
we're-
Did Dixie get one?
Dixie, you got yours, right?
Okay.
Okay, and I don't know whether you want a copy of it? Dixie just read it, and she would probably like to make some changes. This is my first cut at it and speaking English to the citizens of the township.
What gives you the right to try to be efficient?
I know. I don't like these long meetings, well, just like you guys, we go to a zoning board of appeals meeting, man, and we sit here for an hour and a half to 2 hours, listening to complaints. You know what I mean? And it gets really confusing when you start using what we have right now.
And what's really sad is that in 2019, we actually put these standards in to make them easier.
Which was better than the old ones.
Yeah, and just now this is from South Haven Township, so we also use this in that township. And they also have the same, I don't know what this means, because it's a double negative or backward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and almost every example that Tasha gave you in a packet of 10 has all this legalese stuff in it, and you can't figure out whether or not you're supposed to say yes or no.
Mhm.
You just can't figure it out. I tried to make it so that anybody with a sixth grade education can figure out what we're trying to get to.
I have one
Love it.
question.
Sure,
Where it says, will the requested variance grant special privileges to the subject property or other properties in the same zoning district? When you're going to the ZBA, aren't you asking for a special privilege or is it different? Like, they're asking for you to waive a requirement,
waive-
but not give a special privilege?
we're not supposed to give special privileges,
Okay.
you know what I mean?
Okay,
And I was trying to phrase that so that it would be a little general, so it would give us some leeway to say,
okay,
no,
yeah,
that's a special privilege, or
Okay.
it's not a special privilege, you know?
Did, like
Okay.
a use variance, like allow a different use that's not allowed?
No, am I serious about? That may not be the best wording, Mark.
Okay.
Okay, I'm open to wording change.
sure.
I just threw that out there.
Several of these use that language,
Yes.
special privilege is used
Right.
several times, so,
Yeah,
and, yeah, what does that mean? So,
So would we have to maybe define what a special privilege was?
or.
Or
maybe
change
put a
that wording,
comma,
such as
Maybe,
blah,
yeah.
blah, blah? Okay.
this may be a case where I'm giving this to you as a starting point, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Say, you know what I mean, where can we go from here? I just want it to be easy for the average general public to
Absolutely.
understand. And I think this is a step in that direction.
Yeah, well, that's why, yeah, I think that's huge because it doesn't have to be rocket science, you know what I mean?
You
It's
read
not.
those 10, read the 10 from the other townships and you say, how in the world do they make a decision?
Yeah,
Because you really can't.
well, I did look them over and start reading them and I just thought, oh, well, oh,
Yeah.
But it's really hard to do it in just a
a short amount
general,
of time. Yeah,
but, because then when you apply a specific situation to it, then try to answer the questions. It's easier than if you have a specific situation to apply it to,
Yeah.
but I like these questions, just without reading them, I like them, there's so few words.
Yeah. I don't know where you want to go from here,
Okay,
Tasha.
no, this is great.
So the ZBA is proposing that we adopt these as our
Well,
standard
Or
questions.
something like
The
it.
chairman is submitting that as my recommendation, not the ZBA, my recommendation to it. Dixie may have a different opinion, feel free.
Like on question number 1, I think that we need to put in there that it will not establish a precedent in the same zoning district.
Okay, and I don't have a problem with that either. I pulled it out on purpose, but I don't have a problem with that either. And we can go back and, so I'm moving for, this is, to me, this is just a starting point, you know what I mean? And that little add-on there, I don't have a problem with that at all.
Are you making,
making them,
What was that whole thing that you just said, Dixie? Will not,
I said,
won't set a precedent?
and will not establish a precedent in the same zoning district.
Which one are you,
First
number one?
First one, yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask this, what is the spirit behind number one? Or maybe you could give me an example. Is this a case where if they failed to fill out the proper application or didn't get a inspection, then they come for a,
Here's one of the big variance requests we get. Somebody purposely built a building too close to another residential, or it's too close to the road. They did it.
so
They did.
basically, they created it themselves.
Yeah, they created the.
they're asking for forgiveness instead of permission.
Self-created hardship.
Exactly.
If we were to approve that, then
Everybody would do it.
could do it.
You
Yeah.
could say, without setting precedent.
So each case is a case by case.
Right.
So even if the neighbor came with the same application, you would still look at that neighbor
Yeah,
on its own merit, not that you approve the neighbor variance. Each application is its own merit.
the only, I don't, this is great, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm
I
all in
love it.
favor of making things simpler, streamlining it. The only thing I think is tricky about the word precedent is if you do anything one time, aren't you setting a precedent?
Not in the ZBA, no. The
Okay,
ZBA is a no.
not
Can you explain that? Cause it's kind of like if I deal with this all the time at work. If one of my employees comes to me and says, hey, can I do this? I have to go, okay, if I say yes one time, then
So they're.
how do I say no to the
Yeah, so
next
they're
person?
Quasi judicial body, so they're kind of like court. So
Okay,
each property
I have no
comes
idea.
with its own merit. So this property over here, I built it or whatever, and then this guy, I have a ravine, I have a tree, my septic and well is here. So this property has different merit than this one.
Oh.
Even though they're in the same district and they may be on the lake, this guy might have, you know, he actually
I
has
see.
topographical reasons as to why
I see.
he should be granted the variance because,
So you say, yes, we're gonna do it because you have this big giant tree that can't, or whatever.
yeah, for this guy, I'm gonna say no, because you built it without a permit and you need to take it down.
Or the next person doesn't have the big giant tree or the
Yeah.
septic or whatever.
Yes,
Okay,
so
that
each
makes sense.
application from the ZBA
Okay,
is based on, and that's that's kind of part of the criteria, which, I didn't really see in here, which refers to the special conditions and circumstances of the property. The smallness of the parcel,
I didn't put that in on purpose, you know what I
well,
mean?
that needs to be in there, because that's the most important thing, so.
Um,
I think 3, 4, and 5 make complete sense. It's just 1 and 2, I think could be a little still subjective maybe, because how do you define special privileges? I'm not sure. Maybe the ZBA has a definition for that.
Go ahead, Dixie. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
the rights commonly enjoyed, right?
Yeah, commonly enjoyed.
Yeah.
That's where I tried to cover that.
The
that thing.
requested variance.
Now, as far as the size, you're right, I did not put any of the sizes in there. Kind of on purpose, you know what I mean? I didn't want to get into that whole argument, but I don't know whether,
Well, that's the most important, that's a lot of the reason why people come for a variance is because the topography of the land, they have a small parcel. The power line is in a weird spot, like there are circumstances not in their control as to why they need to have their garage maybe closer to the road because of those specific reasons. And that language can be easy enough to,
without getting
Were you
confused.
talking about number
Correct,
two?
Okay,
Yeah.
then we can work on that
Number
too.
two.
So I don't know where we go from here right now, but I wanted you to see it. I
Yes,
wanted.
yeah.
Yeah,
the
these are
CPA
great.
to see it.
and,
That's it.
I do confer that all of these questions meet the requirements of the zoning enabling act.
Mhm.
It does address those, which talks about practical difficulty, which is the lay of the land,
Mhm.
an unnecessary hardship.
Yeah.
Carrying out the strict letter of the ordinance.
Yeah.
Which basically means
Spirit and intent.
I wanna
I
add
like
an
that.
addition to my garage and, you know, pre-1972, there wasn't a setback, so I'm 5 feet from the property line. And now it's 20. So you meeting the strict letter of the ordinance right now, you know, could be a burdensome if I have to
Move.
move it over and cut down this tree, so.
Mhm.
And then the other one is the spirit of the ordinance, which is in there, public safety and substantial justice.
Yeah.
So substantial justice is basically, they're granted the minimum relief required to still build their garage. So so if they ask for 10 feet, you know, the ZBA is like, well, I think you can do just 5. As an example, so, but they're still getting relief to get their garage, which they're allowed by right.
Okay.
Some relief, as an example, so.
Okay.
But correct, if you're in a meeting reading these questions, they're like,
They're horrible.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're very.
Horrible with a bunch of people who are angry. when they walk in.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that is not good. That is not the way to start it.
You know, these aren't in legalese like they're supposed to be, but we can definitely format them to
That.
easily.
So we just made an adjustment to the first question then?
Is there one that's number 2, will the requested variance grant special privileges other than rights commonly enjoyed to the subject property or other properties in the same zoning district? Correct? I mean, that was language that we thought about, that Dixie
Mhm.
recommended.
That's number 4, that's already in there, I think. Grading variance, oh no, I'm sorry.
That I put that
Yeah,
in
yeah.
by number 2.
Okay, yeah. I'm okay with that. I mean, small wording changes like that, I don't have a problem with that.
Great.
Yep, yep.
How about you, Chelsea?
yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll add there'll be a number 6 and, it'll refer to the special circumstances of the actual property.
Okay. But worded
Leave
so
it
that
number 1.
the answer has to be yes.
The answer has to be yes, okay.
Okay, that was the other thing that I went for was I wanted, have to answer yes.
For denial.
If anything says there's a positive answer, then it will be
Mhm.
denied. So that when we go through these questions, is there a yes for that answer, then it's gonna get denied.
Okay,
But the point is, I'm trying to keep people from spending $500 and then go through the whole drama of
Right.
this whole thing, and we all look bad, right?
But part of the issue might be is if we don't have this in legalese and someone takes us to court, they're gonna say, well, what do you mean the intent? What is your intent? As
Correct,
opposed to having the
Yeah.
technical terminology in there.
correct.
and so that's what we'll do.
But it's taking these questions and then putting them in an affirmative, so they're not a double negative.
I like it.
Yes.
Where some of these,
Yeah.
the answer is actually no, but no means yes,
Yes, yeah.
Yes, that's exactly right.
yes. So.
So in this, yes will mean no.
Right, well, granting the variance impede or hinder any other property owner from commonly rights enjoyment.
Yeah.
The answer would be no,
No.
because a garage is allowed by right.
Right,
Yep.
okay.
Well, the granting of this variance, significantly alter the property value in the same zoning district.
Should it be, like alter or reduce, or, I mean, or it just alter in any way?
That was the debate I was having with myself.
Yeah, do
Suppose
we,
it
do we
drives
care if
up,
it goes up?
Or does it, or because this guy drove his property up, does it drive the property next door down?
Right,
That's why I used the word alter
right,
in a significant manner. Now, the significant is subjective, obviously, you know what I mean? But again, like Tasha said, if you go read the other ordinances, there's double negatives all throughout the thing.
I'm not a big fan of that because we can't really say that this variance is gonna lower your property values.
we can't say like
Or- or you
negatively
wouldn't know
alter.
if it's-
Oh,
Yeah, we
right,
don't know
that's
that
true,
for-
you don't know that.
No, if adding this garage is gonna negatively impact the property value, but we could reword this.
But if you want a variance to put if you want a variance to put in a boat repair shop right next to it, it would alter their value, you know what I mean?
Well, you can't request that kind of variance anyway.
No. Well, okay. You might be able to hide it, try to hide
It's coming.
it.
We'll never get a variance request.
Okay. I'm done talking. I don't know what.
Chuck?
No, I agree with these, but yeah,
Okay.
I think they should.
So when you read them and you're up there making the decision,
It's,
it's your,
it's usually I can recognize it, but not everybody can recognize it.
I can.
yeah,
I
right,
think yeah, and I think definitely that's helpful for the property owner.
Mhm.
That's like our goal with the ordinances now, are so that every person in this, township can understand the
Like you said,
ordinances.
anybody with
Yep, sixth
Sixth
grade,
grade.
yeah.
anybody can understand that.
So we can just take these as the foundation and maybe run them through Catherine to make sure that they're legally sound, but they stay simple.
I think we need more work on that, don't you?
I do, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna take a run at them first
Yeah.
and,
And then we'll,
yeah, if you have some things, you can email them to me and,
I want to get the ball rolling.
we appreciate that, that's awesome.
Talking about this now.
but I do think that we shouldn't really have more than 5 or 6 things
Okay,
to go over.
So, thank you guys for listening to us and thank you for letting us come in and interrupt
yes,
your meeting.
thank you for your patience again,
No problem.
appreciate it.
But most places just have 4 or 5 questions.
Mm-hmm.
There's
I'm bored.
3.
Lucky you.
My work here is done. Thanks.
Thank you. Anita, you don't get to go even.
Okay,
Bye.
now we go back to approving the minutes, right?
Yes, we can. All right, so these are all the variances. Questions for variances. Oh, the papers just keep coming. Uh-oh, where did I put my agenda? Nikes. Drop and drop. Oh, wait, here it is. Woo-hoo. All right, got it. All right, so, we already approved the change of the agenda, and so now we need to approve the previous minutes. So I'm gonna read those.
So both of the minutes are in here. The first one
Right.
is the special meeting and then the regular meeting. I
Mhm.
kind of separated them so you can kind of tell which one was which.
Right, thank you.
So is it two separate motions or just one?
And do we have to have two separate motions?
Okay.
Yeah. What'd you say? Yeah. Okay,
No, the motion could include both of them.
Okay. the motion could say yeah,
Since it was the same
evening
evening and basically the same, yeah.
continuation,
The
right,
minutes
okay,
from both meetings
The,
on,
the special meeting at 6 o'clock and then the regular
Right.
meeting at 7.
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I can't wait to go to sleep.
The only discrepancy I see on the minutes, did we already pass them?
No,
now,
Okay. Is under the main meeting at 7 PM, old business Dave would like to withdraw his vote for the ordinance. Dave will attend the township board meeting to make his voice heard. I don't believe you attended the meeting.
I did not.
Okay.
But that's what was said at the
meeting.
Okay,
That was what
I didn't
said in the
know if-
meeting.
So
Okay.
that's what he said at the meeting, so it's accurate, but,
Okay,
accurate at the time.
I
if you
will-
want to somewhere in the new minutes,
No.
say you did attend.
No.
But you don't.
No,
not trying to call him out. I just didn't know how accurate we needed to be.
gotta dot those i's and cross all the t's.
But I'm not doing the little that at all, man.
You guys.
I think these look great.
Beautiful.
Anita, are these your handiwork?
I think so. Did I do these? I
Yes, you
think I finally did them.
Good job. I move to approve both sets of minutes from our meeting on October 9th.
I second it.
Did you hear Trevor second it? All in favor? Aye. Any nays? Okay. That motion carried.
Trevor, you had two L's in Phillips.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I should know that. I'm so good at it wrong.
All right. We don't, any public comments or communications received over the last month from anybody or to anyone?
Public comments?
In general? No,
Yeah.
but from our last meeting, I have a public comment.
Go
If
for it.
you're entertaining them now.
Yes, we are entertaining public
Okay,
comments.
The woman attorney is saying that it had to be 50 kilowatt is the minimum per the state ordinance, right? Or whatever you want to call that.
The Creo
Megawatt.
megawatt.
I think it qualifies it as a large scale commercial utility
Right,
project.
and so what I did was, and the gentleman was saying 11 kilowatts. So what I did was I took 4,000 properties in Columbia Township that we have, I multiplied that out, and that's kilowatt, and I guess, a megawatt is divided by 1,000, which is 44, so I'm very generous in my calculation. So it looks to be that we could go with a minimum of 50 that they had mentioned.
So they're talking about two different things, so.
Is
If you have a facility that's 49 megawatts, the township has control over that. If you are 50 or more, then the state, then you can either decide to regulate it or it goes to the state. That's what that number means.
So, well, really, if we go based on our, demonstrative needs, we would be under 50.
Yeah, we have to
But-
allow all of them under 50,
Right.
or, I mean.
So
we-
I think
we would have an ordinance regulating them, how we would want to regulate them, like in real life, without the state,
Yes.
the setbacks and the district.
So are you
It's two
talking
different
about
things.
demonstrating need or demonstrating, okay,
Yeah, what the gentleman was saying, that it had to be lawful and demonstrated need for the overlay district, and he gave the calculation of 11 kilowatts per house.
11,000, didn't he?
No, it was 11 kilowatts.
11 kilowatts per house. And so based on that calculation, I ran it by the lady attorney, and she was saying, yeah, your number comes out to 44, so that would be 50. Would be the minimum that you were talking about.
But I don't think per this new public act, we can deny large scale. Cause they can go through the
They
state.
would just go through the.
They would just go
correct.
through the state. So what you're saying is if we get a 50 megawatt thing, we've reached our demonstrated need.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, I mean,
So that's what the Creo would then, this overlay.
right,
If Homeer can put that language in there
yeah,
to say.
The overlay
once
would
we
be like-
reach this
Yeah.
capacity, we aren't taking any more, I don't know what.
but that's just for battery storage, but I think it's then you have solar, then you have wind.
We will never get a wind. We will probably get solar because of the 60% by 2035.
Uh-huh,
So that's inevitable, and we don't have an ordinance, so we need one of those.
yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, that, then the 50 megawatt battery storage maybe would, if we could demonstrate our, demonstrable need,
And my numbers are very rigorous.
yeah. If the MPSC says, sure, now you've met it, that's fine, or they could say, no, we want more.
Well, I think the developer can just go to the state.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter.
And
if
get
you
it
have an
anyway.
ordinance That says you can only have 50, that
Right.
doesn't matter.
all right. They could go, even if we have the overlay, they could fight it, yeah. Okay. Cool. Anything else? Mike, you have anything? No, okay. All right, we do not have a public hearing, so we have 1 hour. New, is there any new business, Tasha?
You don't have any new business.
Does anybody have any new business? No? All right, old business, let's continue with the zoning ordinance update. Okay, you're looking at me. You're looking at me like,
All of our words.
I know.
are already-
my words are gone.
Well, okay.
So.
What? Well, okay, what?
It has been.
It has been a really
already,
long night.
and
We got here at 5:30.
we're working through this process, so.
Yeah.
I would entertain either capping this to a certain time frame or saying we're gonna go through one section,
Mhm.
call it a night since we've all been here
Yeah.
since 5:30. But
Mhm.
I don't wanna be that guy.
Well, the next section is the special land use.
I will.
So that won't be very quick. I mean,
Okay, what was the other one?
then we're pretty close to the end of the ordinance.
I thought there was one on
I didn't-
definition or,
Oh, yeah, we haven't done the definitions.
I mean, are these gonna be super long? Because I'll be that guy. I'll be that person.
I didn't read anything for tonight because I was reading the other stuff. I mean, I didn't read any regular stuff. I was reading other stuff.
I did read that the zoning board of appeals section
Mhm.
is the same as as that we have right now. After I was just reading it, it does actually appear to be out of compliance with the zoning enabling act.
Oops. Where's our zoning board of appeals? What section? 22.
2008.
There we go.
But,
Thank you.
so. I need to, that'll be
Excuse me.
something that I'll have to look into to make sure that the act is referred to. And I think in the beginning of our ordinance, it's not correct, so.
At the beginning of the
Our
zoning
Current ordinance,
board of appeals, it is not correct.
whole ordinance itself.
Oh.
Never mind. Our current ordinance that we have today
Uh-huh.
is not in compliance
Oh,
with
yeah.
the zoning enabling act amendment of 2006.
In what way?
In what, yeah, thank
It
you.
doesn't refer to it, it refers to the act before it,
Oh,
but
so,
this one is corrected because it's, you know. the
Yeah.
draft.
So, if our
gotcha.
current ordinances that are published on our website and used for zoning purposes, not in compliance, what does that mean?
It only
Couldn't
means
that
that
be in
just that one little
condition?
section is not in compliance, it doesn't mean the whole zoning ordinance is not.
Okay.
So it's not like the whole, that's why we're working to get through this.
Okay, all right. So what do you guys wanna do tonight? Cause I'm happy to go home, but we can power through this and make, I wanna be able to make good decisions. so,
Yeah, so as part of the special land use,
Which
I
is,
kind of didn't get into here either. We need to go through all of our districts and make sure there is a special land use in
okay,
here for all of the uses that we have.
okay,
So I need to work on that, cause I haven't actually done that, and then, cause I feel like there's some in here that
section is special. land
either we
use.
don't have provisions, or we have provisions for something that's not allowed anywhere. So,
Okay,
so if you guys would like to kind of work on that list,
is that called non-conforming land?
nope, it's special uses, Article 14.
14. Oh, good, thank you. Everything's written so close together, I don't know, I'm struggling to. 13, where's 14? Dave, are you just out?
No, I'm just cruising. Let me know if you're gonna make a decision.
Okay.
Cruising.
So are we doing this, or, cause I haven't read through any of this?
No, I don't want to.
Okay, I make a
Let's table it.
motion that we,
Hold up, I'm not
that
ready.
we go through the reports. And that everybody read, 14, before our next meeting.
And then as part of reading 14, if you could go to our table of uses, so go back to the articles. And then look up the special uses and then.
And make sure they're,
Either
they
if
match.
there is one in there, and or if there's, yeah,
okay,
I mean, I'll do that also, but.
okay.
yeah.
So when we read this, go back to when it refers to, let's say, ag or whatever, right? Go back to the ag district and make sure there's a special use in that, right?
The special use for a bed and breakfast,
Oh,
correct, so you're gonna go through and see, make sure that in one of the districts.
there's
and breakfast.
special use. Okay, got it.
The only one that is not is the campground, that one is new, that we do not have in our ordinance now.
Okay,
I will let you know that
So
one.
make sure each special use is mentioned in some district.
Correct.
we don't have campgrounds in any part district.
The campgrounds are new, we are adding them to this new ordinance.
Okay,
Our current ordinance does not have them.
didn't we talk about just
Mhm.
not doing it anyway?
Well, if we don't want a campground,
Yeah, can we just not have them, or is that exclusionary?
Zoning.
That's right, I remember that whole conversation.
And there's the whole racetrack. I don't know why we would need a racetrack,
No.
so I'm really on the fence with the exclusionary zoning thing.
so if we don't have a zoning that allows something, that means it's not allowed.
Correct.
Correct. So if we just don't write a zoning ordinance for a racetrack, then it's not
Correct.
allowed.
Correct. I would like to take that out of the ordinance.
Um,
We ended up with one in South Haven,
yeah,
and I really wish that wasn't in our ordinance, and now it's there, and it's a real hot mess.
okay,
So,
so, all right,
I don't know, I'm assuming the attorney is gonna read through this, so I think we just kind of do what we think is best for our township. Like, then there's also, the sewer hall or something that was really weird in here.
in the 14,
Water supply and sewage disposal facilities.
but we don't have public works for that, do we?
Correct.
So that can come out.
Yeah, so a lot of these will come out,
Okay,
but then we, if there are.
but just
some,
look through,
Then, yeah, so that's kind of our next step. And then after that,
we just have,
we have signs. Just a whole nother hot mess. It's not regular, so currently we do not regulate signs,
right,
so we do
That's
not
obvious.
regulate signs, so we'll definitely be having that discussion.
okay, so we should go through 14 and 15 at least, right? 16?
14 for sure, if you have time, go through the signs, yes.
Okay. All right,
And that's 15,
I
signs is
thought before
15.
they had, the dimensions of a sign was part of the ordinance.
Dimensions is
I
in
don't
there
think so.
somewhere.
Not sure.
Oh, maybe that's in what we worked on.
I don't.
I don't know
think
what's
that's
current
what it
as
talks
compared
about
to what we
signs.
worked on.
Oh, actually, you're right, Dixie. It's in the zoning districts,
Yeah. It's in each one.
and I think we moved that.
We're gonna move it just
Yeah.
to signs.
It is. Oh, right here. Sign 16 square feet or less in area in any sign painted directly on a wall of a building for
Can be-
permitted or special use. So that's what our ordinance says right now.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion.
Wait, we're not done.
Oh, we're not
Still
done?
have to do did you wanna do?
Oh, the ZBA, okay, yeah, the reports. I was just gonna make a motion that we only do the reports and then adjourn. Cause I thought we had to change the agenda. All right, zoning administrator report, Missy.
You have it.
I know.
A lot this month. That seemed like they're really hot with the zoning permits and they issued one.
Do you think maybe it's because it's heading into the holidays or something?
I hope so. I mean, we've been extremely busy, like so busy, like that building permits coming in a day.
Wow,
It's crazy. It's nuts.
wow,
And then I've only had that one that I sent to you today.
yeah,
And then, of course, I get the, oh, well, we're just replacing an existing deck.
It's not what it said.
It's not what.
no, it said it was a new freestanding.
Yes. I said, well, that's why I need to come out to see, and I had suspected, because you can kind of see it on, if you look on the parcel.
Yeah, I
tour.
couldn't tell from that picture.
Really? And that's why I'm like, I need to go out there, because the whole house is already closer than everyone else, so.
I think he is our SRO. It's his mother's place.
What's an SRO?
School resource officer.
Oh,
So if you can't have a deck, you could have a patio, right?
Well, I feel the deck is already there.
oh, and they wanna replace it?
They want to replace it, so that I'm going out to the site to look at it to see what's actually there. Because I
Can they replace it?
don't know.
But no, but I
Yeah,
mean, would that, if it's already there and they just wanna make it so it's safe, they could replace it because it's already existing there, okay.
That would be my opinion, because we have our non-conforming section.
Right,
Yeah, this one is really weird, because this house is way closer than everyone else.
to the lake?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kind of like. Kind of like a peninsula kind of thing, like they're at this point and then it kind of goes like this.
yeah, I
So
thought that
the
was
lay
weird.
of The lake kind of. It does, it's not like
It might
this,
need to be,
so, they're just as close to the lake as the other people, but when you look at it, it's like this.
yeah, it comes down,
So-
yeah.
And the other, if you're not in this district, it says the average setback. But in the RO district, it specifically says just flat, never in front. So,
Hmm.
you see the. So I want to fix this ordinance.
Yeah. All right, anything else from you?
No, I don't have any other
Okay.
applications or,
So somebody wanted the campground, did you just tell them no? Is that-
and then, yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
20.
no, well, actually, this particular person has called me for every single township that I work for.
They
He
stalking
actually
you?
wants to do a tiny cabin resort.
Oh,
That's really
okay.
what he wants to do. So I basically just said, we don't allow campgrounds here. So that's kind of the story on that.
Tiny cabin resort, like a little mini, tiny home things.
Yeah, like,
Yeah. They have them in South Haven, they look pretty cool.
like, I don't know, 300 or 400 square feet kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah, they look pretty cool. They have domes. I was on Airbnb.
Domes are ridiculous.
That's the old golf course, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
It's on, yeah, the east side of the road there, if you're headed north.
So we have.
Where are you talking about?
I didn't know,
Blue
I don't know
Star.
where it is.
If
I don't
you-
know where
If
it
you
is.
head north on Blue Star, probably mile or two north, on the
okay.
right, there used to be a golf course there.
Oh, yeah,
They closed it and there's a bunch of dome things on there.
and you can stay in them.
Okay.
Is that where Anne Marie does her catering thing?
Is it called the off map? No, they're tents. Off map is tents.
Yeah, off maps in Geneva Township.
Yeah, that's awful, yeah.
ZBA, do you have a report?
Yes, we had a meeting and we
This was
angered.
it?
No, we had a real one.
Meeting.
And people were angry
Oh, yeah.
because we voted not to, they were very angry, very angry.
Very angry, yes.
So what did they want?
What would
The
they
zoning
want?
board of appeals was in a horrible situation.
So the road used to be like this, but over 80 years, apparently, it's gotten down to this. So there's trees growing and people have built decks, like right up to the road, and they wanted to build a deck. They built a new house, they had a cottage on the lake, they built a new house, wanted to build a deck, and it was gonna be too close to the road.
No,
We said
they
no.
already built the deck without a permit. This is the one.
Oh, yeah.
They're the ones who built the house, started to build the house without permits.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
On the island?
Surrenders.
Yes.
Mhm.
And you said,
And we said no.
and they said. Man.
And I was really thinking about it. I'm like, well, what if they would have really came before the meeting? Like, if they would have came before they built it,
Right,
I think you would have granted some sort of relief, but I still don't think that you would have granted all of that. So the right of way, kind of the right of way is 30 feet. The right of way has always been the same of 30 feet, but the improved surface of the road is way over here. So, and then there's a hill on the one side. And yes, over the years, they have built next to the improved surface of the road in the right of way. So there are a lot of decks in and the house next to them is actually in the road right of way.
Oh, my gosh.
So,
mm-hmm,
so
So
when,
those are just grandfathered in?
so, yeah. So if they wanted to do something today, if a tree fell on it, unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to permit it in the right of way.
Right.
And then it's a private road, so the road commission doesn't have authority, so nobody would have authority to say, oh, sure, you can rebuild your house in the right of way, so it'd be a hot mess.
Yeah.
But the
Not for
ZBA
you
could
guys, right?
possibly grant them relief to be up to the right of way.
Right.
But they could not give approval to be in it.
Hmm.
And there was a lot of discussion of the right of way and improved surface of the road, and it got pretty heated a few times.
Wow.
and I think a lot, or part of what played into the not getting the permit is they're used to Chuck Moore, that
Let them do anything.
it's okay, we'll take care of it later. It's okay, we'll take care of it later. Just go ahead and we'll take care of it later.
Oh.
Because
So this
he
was the first application I got when I started, and it was on the lake, and I was already like, oh, hell no. I'm like, I need more information, because the site plan he gave me wasn't a good site plan to start with. So I kicked it back and said, I need a site plan, and septic and well, and plan, I didn't have anything.
And then they started building.
And then soon I don't know when they had actually started, but that was kind of
Oh,
but even if he was used to working with Chuck, you still didn't pay for anything. I
you
mean,
still didn't get a
like-
permit.
Like, so it is what it is, so.
And then we had a conflict of interest up here, so Dixie had to step
Yeah.
in and be our alternate.
Cause Chuck
Lucky
is a
you.
very close neighbor to
Okay.
that, so. But it worked out.
Yeah, and one of their neighbors, wrote a letter asking us to deny it.
Huh.
It was, yeah, it's not.
Hmm.
it's
That does
a-
not sound like a whole
No.
fun thing.
No, not at all.
It's
But
not less like
and,
this.
and the whole life of skiing, if you look at it, it doesn't look out of place at all,
Uh-huh.
but it's like,
According to the,
it's
But-
8 feet
yeah.
from the actual right of way, which the ordinance specifically says you measure from the right of way, so.
Well, and the house next door, if you're coming down the road and veer just a little, you're clipping their deck.
Yeah.
It's like right on the road. It's
Wow.
crazy,
huh,
crazy.
that's wild.
that's-
How, was there a smaller setback before? How, even if the road eroded, how are there still decks that close to it? Maybe I need to go see it. I'm having a hard time
Yeah,
visualizing how this
there's-
happened.
Well, there's a hill, So there's the improved surface of the road, and then on that side, there's a hill. So most of the
The
decks.
decks are over the hill.
They're,
right?
well, they're like little stairs. They're really not. They're more like
A picture.
a landing, and then you walk down to get to the property because there's a hill.
Is this-
Oh, okay.
So technically,
Evergreen
you
is
can't really
dark,
build there
Oh,
anyway,
is that the island?
but the. improved
I'm envisioning a
surface-
house with a deck pushing up against the road, but it's more like to get to the
You
house.
get to, correct.
Okay.
Oh, okay, that makes
But
sense.
the
There's-
deck that's there doesn't
There's
look
the
out of
neighborhood.
place at all, but the
Oh,
right of
the
way
neighbors.
line
That's the road.
is just
That's
over
the
there,
neighbors.
Huh,
How
so.
would you do that?
And these are the
They-
steps
they
that they
would
have that will
need-
go down the road.
They would need to do a replat to change the right of way. They should just invest the money to do that.
Mhm.
uh-huh.
Hmm.
Wow,
So this is the
'Cause
road.
if they went from 30 feet to 20, you know, then a
Right.
lot of those people would now be in compliance and it would give you that room.
We think they put this stuff in
Seems
so
like
that
it's a
they.
mess over there on the island.
Cottages,
Yeah,
you know, so new houses
This
are
is the road.
built, you know, they have.
They're so much bigger.
Old ones,
sure.
you know.
yeah.
But it's like this side is different and then you kind of come over here and the terrain is different, so. And they just, like the road improved surface just didn't really make it quite in the middle of the right of way like most roads are.
Interesting.
Or the fire lanes are mostly just the width of the fire lane, so the whole improved surface is in the fire lane,
Mhm.
which those aren't very big either, so.
Yeah,
Huh.
all right, Township Board, do you have an update or a report for us?
I think you guys heard most of what we've been working on the last couple meetings. We had a special meeting to discuss what we wanted to do about the lawsuit, which we decided to join. And we had to, agree to a limit that we would be comfortable spending up to be part of the lawsuit. I feel really good about that now. I mean, we all unanimously wanted to join the lawsuit anyways, but there was a little bit of hesitation, not knowing what the top end of that limit would look like, but
Right.
at the time when I called Michael to see like, hey, can we join? Is there a minimum amount we can contribute to join? And he explained the process that you can't really do that. They just suggested this amount of 10,000 in each municipality, but he said, hey, there's no way we're gonna get to that. If we base this thing off of 50 townships, I don't think it'll even get to 5,000 per township because it's just an appeal. That's not like a trial. There's no witnesses, anything like that. And he said, if we get more than that, it'll be even less. So we went in and said, well, we want to be part of it. So we'll go ahead and take the upper limit and trust that it won't get there. Well, now that I hear he has 70 plus in there, it's gonna be even less.
Right.
So, and he said the reason you can't do, the reason they set the recommended limit so high is if we, for example, we went in and said, we're good with 5,000. If it cost 5,500, they have to remove us from the lawsuit
Oh, okay.
because then we're not paying at that point past. And so he's like, if you guys want to set a low limit, I get it. But I'd rather have you not part of the lawsuit then, because I don't want to have 30 townships that have to go in and pull them out of the lawsuit with all the paperwork and file new briefs. And so it made sense. I feel really good about what he's doing though. And I think
Yeah. I think it's-
clearly our citizens want us to fight it. I mean, there was a lot of discussion about should we spend the tax dollars on that, you know, more attorney fees, but it's a worthwhile fight. And I don't think it's gonna cost us anywhere where they think, so.
Well, it's a worthwhile fight to keep local control.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
So what's the plan of action going to be if they don't get a stay?
The
They,
board will have to
Yeah.
decide how they wanna go, if they wanna kind of amend the ordinance we have to have it be a Creo workable ordinance or not have one at all.
I mean, I'm
It's a policy decision with the board.
I'm sort of glad to hear that we're not bound by whatever we do, like we can still change our mind, like, so for him to say, well, you could adopt it now and then still do a Creo. I was worried that because we had started down this path, we were bound to it. And we couldn't switch gears and go, oh, no, sorry, we want to do a Creo now.
Yeah, you know, I think that's what Dave was saying that last meeting, you know,
If
we
we,
stuck with
if
what we
we
had
approve
done.
Vesper, then we are,
we would be stuck with that application.
right?
So if we had an ordinance and they applied and we're in that process, that wouldn't go away,
Right.
as an example.
If we have
But
an
the next
approved prop,
application, if we were to amend the ordinance, they would use the new
Right.
ordinance and not the one they,
yeah,
Correct.
so it could possibly just be the one application.
right.
But it was enlightening to hear, and I still, I don't think Catherine was wrong. I think her recommendation to us at the time made sense because it's a moving target, but it was enlightening to hear Michael say, well, here's a problem with workable ordinances. None of them are really workable because you might make a workable ordinance that works for Vesper,
But not.
Which
for-
it appeared we were, but then company B comes in and says, oh, well, that worked for them. It's not gonna work for
So
me.
we'll just go
We're
with
still
state.
back to square one of going through the state.
Mhm.
So hopefully this lawsuit works because,
Well, Michael said that there's substantial risk with only going with him. Right? Because
Only going-
Vesper can then go to the Public Service Commission and then we get whatever it is that they accept. Whereas if we have an ordinance of, you know, like having the minimum of the 50 megawatts or whatever, well, then we would have established what our standards are, right?
If they decide to work with us,
If who does?
if Vesper decides to go with that.
Even if, in our ordinance, it says we only want 50 megawatt, they can still go to the state and have 200 megawatts. The state,
But he's saying that they would cost him $75,000
Yes.
a year worth of time and already.
Yeah, they can still do
have
it.
the option to
It's
go
worth it
to
if
the
it's a
state.
couple billion.
Yeah,
Hmm.
they still have, no matter what our ordinance says, they still have the option to go to the state and not use our ordinance.
So with that being said, if we had an ordinance that had 50 megawatts, we would be meeting our demonstrated needs, which he is saying he believes that local zoning can.
The developer can always go to the state.
State, yeah.
We do
even
not
if-
have any control over 50 megawatts. The developer chooses to.
And that's if the lawsuit goes through, then we can put the overlay in and we can say we have demonstrated that we have met the, you know, the need or the
They
whatever.
don't have to use
But-
our ordinance.
Right, but they can still, even if, they could still say, well, we don't like that, we'll spend the money and the time. And maybe that will change if it gives us more control. But or maybe it'll give us some legal footing or something, but I think they can still. Maybe it'll change if we win the lawsuit, that we could say, oh, no, we've met that need, we don't need to. Have any more, but I don't know, that seems a little bit too good to be true.
No.
If,
If
if you have no ordinance, then when you go to the Public Service Commission, then they can set whatever
Right,
they would like, whereas
Yep.
you have, otherwise you have some conflict going on, say, no, that's not acceptable to us.
But the developer can always just go to the
Yep.
state. They do not have to use our ordinance, even if we have one, if they're over 50 megawatts.
right,
They do not have to use our ordinance. They can go to the state and not use our ordinance at all.
yep, they can just
That's
be
what
like,
this
yeah,
law-
no,
which
we
is
don't
what
like it,
But if you don't have an ordinance, they have to go to the state.
right,
If the developer chooses where they wanna go, if they wanna use our ordinance, then they can. But they don't have to, they can
No.
just go to the state.
Yep.
Yes, yes,
yeah,
that's why we don't like this, yeah, that's why. we
yeah,
don't
that's
like it.
why that's why being stripped of our jurisdiction.
But from what we keep hearing, the developers don't wanna go through that process because.
takes a lot more time.
Took more time and more
the
money.
Township, if they had a 300-foot setback, they would still maybe like to use the township ordinance instead of going to the state, but.
Right. Is that it for you?
There's more of a likelihood of you getting a battery storage plant or facility if you had an ordinance. Otherwise, you're gonna have to spend all this money and time to go to the state, right? If you don't have an ordinance.
I don't know. I mean, it depends on how bad they want it there. I mean, it's kind of just like a risk, a cost risk. I mean, if you're gonna make $14 billion and it's gonna cost you, 75,000 to put in an application with the state, and the place doesn't have an ordinance, you're gonna be like, yeah, sure, well, I'll do that. You know what I mean? It's just, if they're gonna make a ton of money, they don't,
Shifty, they're shifty.
Yeah.
well, their business.
Well,
then.
we didn't have an ordinance when
Yeah,
they
but I don't
bought
like
that property.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
they bought
You can't
property.
use that property, right? Currently.
what do you mean?
Like, for example, they have to get a special use permit, right, in order for them to put in their zoning.
Until November
Until November
29th.
29th. After November 29th, they do not.
Right, but they have to go to the state and file an application.
Correct.
Right, but we can't stop it.
So it's been confirmed that they did purchase the property?
Oh, yeah, they purchased
I
it.
thought they had it on,
It's still a lease.
A lease, it's a lease, yeah.
So they're paying the property owner still money to hold that property for this project.
Yeah, I saw him on the house project.
And then I'm not sure if
I had to bite my
if they'll
tongue.
actually buy the property, or I don't know if they just keep leasing it. I'm not really sure how that works.
Yeah. It's a sandwich.
Yeah.
Motion.
All right,
Okay, who's motioning? I'm motioning that we
You got it.
adjourn.
do last
At
public
8:30.
comments.
Well, Mike, do you have any last public comments? Dixie made hers. Okay,
who seconded?
somebody second it, please.
I'll second.
Trevor seconds. All in favor? Aye.
What time? 8:30.
8:13. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with us, Mike.
So we didn't decide, do we wanna do 6 o'clock for our next meeting? Or start from at 7?
What do y'all wanna do?
I don't have any other
Flexible
applications or any other business.
I think that rhythm makes sense. It gets us a little more time and gets us through the
Yeah.
ordinance.
Stuff
so-
faster.
Yeah, get her done. Season up.
Oh.
I'm just talking about myself.
Oh.
You could be a 30-year-old who has great curly like my brother-in-law.
Trevor, 8:30.
I'm far from that.
I don't think I knew Trevor when he was 30.